Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the WBF podcast. I'm here with Shawn and Sheryl Williams. How are y'all doing?
We're wonderful.
Doing
Doing
good.
good?
Yeah.
Thanks for reaching out and being willing to do this with me. It's always just a pleasure to have someone want to come and share their testimony.
Yeah.
It's a really important thing, I think, that can really inspire people to look at their own lives and see similarities and other things and just seeing the Lord work in our lives because all of our glory is going back to Him.
That's right.
So, as I told you guys right before we hopped on air, that I wanted to just catch everyone up on my life because it's been like a few weeks since I've done this.
Okay.
My wife is 34 weeks pregnant.
Wow.
And so she was measuring a little small. Everyone's been noticing, anyone who goes to church here has noticed that her belly's not very big. So the doctor wanted to do an ultrasound a couple days ago. And the ultrasound tech sent us home and said if there was an emergency, she would have sent us upstairs. Everything was fine. Well, we get a call like 2 days later. That was yesterday. We got a call and they wanted us to come back that night or today for further testing. Well, we had a graduation an hour out in Illinois, so we did that for her nephew. We came back home. We went to bed at like 11, didn't get home till like 10:30, and we went up there at 6 in the morning this morning to get some further tests done. We almost had the baby today.
Oh, wow.
So if the test had been the same as they were just a couple days ago and the fluid levels would have still been as low as they were, we possibly would have had to, she would have had to have a C-section and went through delivery today. But praise the Lord, the results came back good. So
yes, thank God.
we'll be on a week to week with that. So I just ask that anyone who listens to keep us in your prayers. Keep Jody and the baby in your prayers. We would like to see the baby get closer to full term. She's had 2 C-sections already.
Oh.
And we were kind of hoping and praying and believing for a VBAC. Her doctor originally said that could be a possibility. But now that the size of the baby might be an issue, the fluids are possibly an issue, and the baby's breech, there's a lot of things that are kind of stacking up. But that doesn't mean that faith doesn't have its work. And so we're just going to believe the biggest thing, if you are going to pray, is just praying for health of the baby and my wife.
Okay.
If she did have to go through a C-section, we know what it's like. We've been through it before. She's been through it before. I'm just the guy who sits there and just tries to help as much as I can. I don't have any part in that.
Well, let's lift her up right now.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the baby. So, Heavenly Father, we just thank you, Lord, that you are the great physician and that you are with Jody and the baby, and that you are working on their behalf, Lord. We just thank you, God, that you have knit this baby and just perfectly and wonderfully knitted this baby in her womb. And so we just pray, God, that you would see this delivery as simple as possible, Lord, that this baby would be born with no complications for the mother or the baby. Lord, we just pray for comfort and peace over them right now, over Daniel and Jody and the baby. Lord, we thank you, God, that you are in the presence of this situation. And we look forward to this beautiful birth. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. You know, I was thinking about that the other day. Someone prayed for my wife and I, and it's like nothing reminds you of what being a family in Christ is like until you pray together, you believe together. It really connects you. So thank you. I really do appreciate
welcome.
that. So this is the first time I've ever had a couple come on at the same time. Usually I like to try to get one individual testimony and then another, but I would really like you guys to kind of share your story a little bit before y'all met.
Okay.
And then as you get to where you meet, then maybe we can kind of commingle them and kind of go from there.
Yeah.
If that sounds good with y'all.
Perfect. But you're going to start first.
All right, Shawn. What was life like growing up for you? What was church life like?
I had no church life at all for the first 54 years.
Wow. Okay.
I shouldn't say that. For like maybe the 1 year back when I was 4 years old or so, my mom was wanting to go to church. And when my sister was born, she's 4 years younger than me. When she was born, it became too much for my mom because my dad really didn't want to go. I wasn't really wanting to be there. And we just gave up on it. Nobody in my family, from aunts, uncles, grandparents, nobody talked about God. You know, I mean, if I heard God, it was usually dang it right after that, you know.
Yeah.
And it was we had a great family life growing up. My dad loved to hunt and fish. My mom was born and raised in the country. My mom was actually born on a duck and pheasant farm where my grandparents did all that. And it was good. I really enjoyed my childhood growing up. I wasn't the greatest in school. I was like a CD student, whatever, you know, because I did get into smoking weed early. I was 13, I think, when I grew 150 plants, and that was the first that I smoked.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you started big from the get-go.
And I stuck with it my whole life.
Wow.
The only time I ever quit smoking was when I was on a job that I just couldn't get away with being on it. You know, if I'd carry fake pee with me, whatever, for most jobs, but like I was doing a job on a towboat a while back, and if you'd get hurt, there's no way you're going to get to the fake pee to be able to pass a test. It's, you know, and then if I got killed or something, she'd get nothing out of it. So that's the times that I would quit, you know, for 6 months, a year, whatever it took. And the day I got laid off, I was back on it again. But just always loved to party, always loved the nightlife. I was a biker for 15 years, you know, rode a lot. Lived in Florida for 27 years, did a lot of offshore fishing, hog hunting, gator hunting.
Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Wisconsin originally.
Wow,
I
okay.
grew up in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
So Florida was kind of where I took off to after high school.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing but farming and factories in Wisconsin. So I worked factories for a while, and it was a nowhere job. You know, you just didn't get anywhere with it. So I took off to Florida. I went on a vacation and went on a fishing charter. And while I was there, I got talking to the guy that was the charter guide, you know, just about what kind of work that was and this and that. And I told him how much I enjoyed fishing. He said, man, you ought to come down here and work on one of these charters. Well, a month later, I was in Florida. So I got into charter fishing for a while. I'd worked on 6-pack charters. I worked on party boats that took up to 60 people.
Yeah.
And worked on a dolphin feeding trip and a glass bottom boat and Shell Island, the whole thing in Panama City. And
So by the world's eyes, you were doing great. You were living the dream.
yeah, as far as I was concerned, my life was awesome. You know, I did not have a bad childhood at all. You know, and anything I did was self-induced. It was, you know, nothing that was bad in my surroundings. You know, it was just, if there was a stupid choice made, it was me that made it.
Yeah, for sure.
But trying to think, then
You were married.
well, I was married 13 years to my first wife,
Okay.
and we had a pretty good marriage, but we just sort of grew apart.
Yeah.
Didn't have the same opinions, the same drives. She got into a company where she took every class and course that she could and went from being a telemarketer to 4 years later, she was senior manager over technical support.
Wow.
And she was working 80, 90, 100 hours a week, you know, and always wanting the bigger and the better. And I was happy where I was at. I was an equipment operator for 27 years. And just, I didn't have to have the brand new car, brand new truck, brand new house, you know, where she was striving for all that. I was wanting to just be able to live life and do the things I wanted to do. So we slowly grew apart. We got divorced. I was divorced for 7 years, and I moved over towards Cape Canaveral, which were the launch pads and stuff are at in Florida. And for 7 years, I just hunted, fished, and worked. That was pretty much my life. I really didn't meet any women that were somebody that I'd hook up with for very long.
Mm-hmm.
And then somewhere along the way, it was my old neighbor from when I was married to my first wife. We still kept in touch, and she was working at a restaurant that it turned out she was working at, and that was how we got hooked up.
Wow. So from Wisconsin to Florida to Paducah? How'd you end up in Paducah?
In 2011, the economy in Florida just fell on its face.
The space shuttle program.
The space program shut off, which was like 4,500 people just in our county got laid off from the space program.
Wow.
Then the BP oil spill happened, so all the tourists quit coming. So Disney was one of the places that I did a lot of construction at, and they shut down so many projects because they had such a lack of tourists coming through.
Right.
So I was getting it's like every job that I had for almost 2 years, it would be, all right, we got a 3-week job for you. We got a 1-month job for you. We got, a week-long job for you. So it's like every time I started a job, I already knew what day I was getting laid off. There was nothing long-term. And when I'd get laid off, it was sometimes 2-3 months at a time, making $250 a week on unemployment. So I was kind of starving to death.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the hunting and fishing, I would have. But a friend of mine, he grew up in Reedland area, and he lived down there. There's a guy that I hog hunt and gator hunt and all that with, and he came up here doing construction, and he told me, he's like, if you want to make some money, come on up here. He said, I'll put you up in our place, feed you. He said, we throw away more food than you'll eat. So I came up for 3 months to live with him, did some work, and we found a 150-acre farm that was for rent, and I couldn't turn it down. So 3 months later, we were up here.
Wow. Man, it sounds like you had an eventful life, though. It sounds like you were, just living the dream. But there were some ups and downs, right? There were some times where you were barely scraping by 3 weeks here or 1 week here, just really just gnawing and clawing to get by there for a season. And so you guys met in Florida, I assume?
Yes.
And so you were working at this restaurant.
Yeah. So my childhood is a little bit different than his.
Yeah, let me hear the backstory for you.
So I was born in Pennsylvania, and I've got an older brother, 7 years, and my sister who is 4 years older than me. And my mom, and I did not know my dad. And I don't have any memories before 7 years old.
Really?
None. My first memory, I was 7 years old. And my first memory was actually of me running in my yard in Pennsylvania, and my brother was shooting me with his BB gun.
Wow.
And so it's really odd for me to describe, because I don't remember anything before that. And it's almost as if I was just placed into this family, like literally just dropped into this family one day, and my memories started.
Wow.
And it started there. And it's just blotchy pieces of memory. It's almost like just little sneak previews of movie clips that just,
Mm-hmm.
I remember my sister, my sister was diagnosed with epilepsy when she was 7 years old. And I remember, we lived on a farm. So I remember little bits and pieces of, playing out in the yard or playing in the cornfields where we weren't supposed to be. And I remember my sister having seizures and us trying to get her, back to the house. And I remember my brother would chase us and hurt us, like literally we would just drop to the ground because we knew he would catch us. And so we would drop to the ground and he would literally sit on us and tickle us like till we peed ourselves. Or he was horrible. He was a very mentally unstable individual. And so, there was abuse that started very young from him. Physical abuse that he did to my sister, broke her collarbone, just always called her, my sister's mentally challenged as well. And so he would call her retarded, and
Stabbed her in the leg with a screwdriver.
he eventually stabbed her in the leg with a screwdriver. but he started sexually abusing me. That's along with the very first memories that I have as a child is being shot with a BB gun, always being very afraid. Like I was always like, I don't remember ever feeling safe. And I never felt like I belonged. Like I never had a sense of belonging. The man that my mother, like this memory, when the memories first started, my mother was already married to her third husband. Okay. So my father supposedly had died. He had fought in the Vietnam War and came home and was very, very sick. And he eventually passed away. That's what I was told as a little girl. And that's all I ever believed. Whenever I asked any questions, it was shut down. It was not to be talked about.
Yeah.
And so I remember, this first stepfather that I had, whose name was Bob. He got very, I guess, depressed maybe, like I was told that he got laid off from his county job and he turned into an alcoholic. Well, he started beating my mother. And so my sister and I would hear these horrible beatings going on as kids up on top of the stairs, and our brother, eventually he got taken away from by the state because he had actually shot and killed a bull and a heifer and wounded another heifer and said that all he saw was our stepfather's face. And so he was removed from the home, taken and put into state custody. And I never told anybody about my brother and the abuse that he was doing, because I was afraid of him. But he killed animals, he tortured animals, and he had all the signs of a serial killer, really, now that I'm an adult and realize these things that some serial killers, show signs of. Like he hung our grandparents' cat on the bunk bed to death. And
Oh my goodness.
so, with the beatings that were going on with our stepfather, my mother moved my sister and I to Florida. And my brother was still in the custody of the state. And this is my half brother and sister because they have the same mom and dad. I have a different dad.
Okay.
Okay. And then, of course, my mother was married to her third husband, who she was now divorcing. So at the age of 8, we moved to Florida where my grandparents lived. And my mother, she liked to date. And, these are just brief moments and memories that I have of a couple different men that she had dated. And we did a couple outings or whatever. But eventually, our brother came back into the picture. It was like he was in and out of our lives. And he would, like I said, he was 7 years older than me. And the abuse continued. And so eventually my mother was dating a man who was 28 years older than her. And she didn't introduce him to us for quite some time. And I remember asking, when are we going to meet this Ralph person that you're just, you're talking about? And she said, you will, eventually. But she would go away for the weekends and leave us in the care with our brother.
Oh my goodness.
Who was obviously mentally unstable, you know. And so he was our babysitter. And alcohol was a very big thing that he would, I would consume alcohol with him before he would abuse me. And so alcohol was introduced at a very young age for me.
Did you try to use that as a coping mechanism?
Absolutely. Because I used to try to put myself into a safe place,
Yeah.
in my mind. And so eventually my mother married this man, that was 28 years older than her. And before she married him, she had found out that she had cancer. And it was just one encapsulated tumor in her right lung. So she had surgery and had it removed. And I remember she was recovering at his place, at his apartment complex. Well, I got caught smoking and I was going to get punished, but she had him punish me because she didn't have the energy to do that. And so he took me in his bedroom and that's where he first sexually abused me. And so that's where that began.
So your first memories are traumatic, painful, getting shot with a BB gun
Yes.
to getting sexually
Yes.
abused, and it just becomes a seasonal thing. Your brother's in and out of your life,
Yes.
and there's a peace for maybe a moment, but then it just comes flaring back like a
Yes.
wildfire.
Absolutely.
Fire, just for this other man to begin the same cycle.
Yes. And so,
Wow.
and he used to tell me, and the only reason that I'm telling the detail is because I want people to understand just how powerful our God is.
Yes.
Because when it all comes to the head, people need to understand just how deep the trauma was that I was in, that I went through, and so that they can realize that God is just this big. And so, he used to tell me that if I ever told, nobody would ever believe me. And he was a very manipulative man. He had my entire family, and I was not very close to my family anyway. I mean, like I said, I always felt like I didn't belong. There was something, it was just an odd feeling that I just can never describe, But he told me no one would ever believe me. Well, now I'm acting out, so here I am, probably 10, 11. And I'm starting to act out, between the abuse from my brother, the neglect that I'm getting from our mother because she's never home on the weekends, right? Or she's working. My mother worked very hard, I've got my sister who I love to death, who is special needs, who is epileptic, who has seizures that I'm picking up off the floor in the mornings while I'm trying to get ready for school because she's having seizures. She's getting picked on from school terribly bad, just all this stuff.
And you're getting in fights with all the people.
And now
that
I'm
are
starting to
picking
get
on
into fights at school. So I'm acting out because I want somebody to realize that this man, not only him, but my brother, there's bad things that are happening, but nobody's going to believe me. I was terrified of my brother, so I was afraid to tell on him.
Yeah.
And my stepfather was just so manipulative. It was like no one would ever believe me. And so I never, I wasn't going to tell, but I was acting out. So I was getting into fights. I got expelled from one school, put into a comprehensive school for troubled kids. And it was getting even worse, So I got called into the office. I was in the 8th grade at this point. And the abuse had been going on. My mom married him, and the abuse had been going on for probably 3 years. This point. And now I realized he's abusing my sister. I walked in and he was sexually assaulting my sister, who was my life at that time. She was my world. And I needed to protect her. Well, when I was called up into the guidance counselor's office, she said, what's going on with you? And so it just all came out that day. And she had promised that it was just between her and I. So I felt safe. And I told. But I only told about my stepdad. I never said anything about my brother. And so long story short, I go back to class. Well, by the end of the day, there's police there. And they take me to the police station. They call my mom. They asked my mom, where's your daughter, your other daughter? Oh, what did Sheryl do now? Was her reaction. So they said, she's done nothing wrong, but we need you and your husband and your other daughter to come down.
So your mom was so busy that she truly was oblivious the whole time?
Listen, so my mom, I remember sitting and being abused in the living room, and my mother cooking dinner, and it was an open area, the kitchen to the living room. And I remember just saying to myself, Mom, just turn around, just turn around, just turn around.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like, she never did. It was like, she would, if I asked to, go spend the weekend at my friend's house, a lot of times I got, well, I'll do extra chores, whatever, I was always on my bike. I was always on my skates. I was never at home. If I had the opportunity, I was not at home because I didn't want to be in that house.
Right.
And so, but then I would get grounded because I'd be late coming home. So then I would get grounded.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But there would be times that I would ask if I could go spend the weekend at my friends or whatever. And my mom would say, well, you got to go ask Ralph. And so I would go ask Ralph. Well, there was stipulations connected to that. So I didn't go anywhere like that a lot, And so, uh, I turned him in, and I heard my mom cry, this horrible, horrific cry in the police station. And that's when they had placed Ralph under arrest.
Mm.
And I remember just saying to the detective, like, I just want to go talk to my mom. I want to go talk to my mom. I want to go console her,
Mm-hmm.
And so they let me in the room with her. And when I went to hug her, she pushed me away and asked me what I had to say for myself.
Mm.
And those are words that I've never forgotten. And the pain that was in her eyes, like the hate that she had in her eyes, I will never forget.
Wow.
And so, I was 13 years old. And from that point on, she hated me.
Mm.
And I mean, we went home, they arrested him. We went home, and I remember her just crying, just nonstop crying. And she was talking to her sister on the phone, and just, I got to get him out. I got to get him out of jail. I've got to get him out.
She's just dependent on him.
For whatever reason.
Mm.
And so my sister and I went to go stay with our aunt because my mom put her house up or something and got him out of jail.
Wow.
So my sister and I had to go stay with our aunt. And the next thing I know, my mother and my stepfather are coming to her house to talk to my sister. And so the next thing I know, my sister was saying that the police had her confused with a boy she liked.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so eventually, I was taken away, and I was put into a home. I was put into a group home while we were awaiting trial.
Mm.
And I was not allowed any contact with my mom. And now my family, let's remember, I am all alone.
Yeah.
Because my entire family is on his side.
Wow.
They have all, he was the victim in this whole thing.
Mm.
She was the unruly kid that wouldn't behave, wouldn't follow rules, was, disobedient, and everybody looked at him like he was this awesome
And
guy.
and that I was, trying to ruin his life, I guess. And so, meanwhile, this whole time, I've still never said anything about my brother. So this is a dark secret that I'm keeping about my brother, because why would I tell about him if nobody's believing me about Ralph?
Mm.
So, with me being taken and put into a home, separated from my mother, who I needed so much at that point in my life, I dropped the charges because I just wanted her to love me again. And I figured that was the only way that she would.
Mm.
And so I would sacrifice and just bite the bullet and go home and just act like nothing happened, and that she would love me again. Well, that wasn't the case at all. She never loved me again. Maybe she did, but
She didn't
the
care.
actions weren't there. And so
Yeah.
now I'm going to be 14 years old. I was starting the 9th grade, and, trying to live under the same roof with this person. It was horrific. It was horrible. And I still only remember certain pieces about this part of my life.
Yeah.
So, in the short period of time that we were all under the same roof, I got raped. I was hanging out with a girl who was actually 18 years old. She was a lot older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And she came to my school. She would get me out of school. And, I was smoking pot. I was hanging out. I was doing the most. I was smoking cigarettes, drinking.
Yeah.
I was just numbing and trying to live with this circumstance. And
Did you ever open up to any of your friends or anybody, like a classmate or anything like that?
I didn't really have friends.
Right.
No. And so this girl is who I opened up to.
Okay.
She was the one that I opened up to.
Mm.
And so I wound up getting raped when I was with her. And eventually,
Which was a police officer that raped you,
It was a corrections officer.
or corrections officer that raped her.
Yes. So they wouldn't pursue a case against him. They had the evidence, but they wouldn't pursue a case against him. There was an eyewitness, not that saw the actual, but the right aftermath of it.
Right.
My friend, who we chased the guy down, and we got pulled over by the police. And when that happened, we said, no, this guy, he just raped me, and so they found them, they found the guy, and eventually we found out that he was a corrections officer and that they weren't going to pursue it. Anyway, so when I told my mother that this had happened, she didn't care. And the final straw was getting ready to happen, where it was just a few days after the rape. I was pushed around by Ralph. He was bullying me. And I'd had it. And I went to my mother and I was like, you got to make a choice. Something's got to give. Because I told her, I said, one of us has to leave this house, because I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
And so she said, well, it's going to have to be you to leave, because I can't put my husband on the street. And so that's what happened. So I went, after I flipped out a little bit and punched a hole in the wall, kind of thing, said some really horrible things to her. I left with the clothes on my back, and I was 14. Nowhere to go. And so I wound up on the streets of Clearwater, Florida, and all alone. So about a week of just surviving on the streets by myself, and thinking that, a police officer they're going to approach me. My mom surely is going to put an APB out on me or something to get me to come home. And she never did. So eventually, I wound up being approached by someone who said that, you're in a really bad place. You shouldn't be out here on the streets. This is very dangerous. You're going to get hurt out here.
Right. Yeah.
Why don't you come and let my family help you? And, you'll have a bed to sleep in. You can take a shower. We'll feed you. You'll have a roof over your head. So it all sounded really good. And so I went with that person, and they had a family. It was a mom, a stepdad kind of thing, little tiny brothers, older sisters, but they were pimps.
Oh my goodness.
It was a complete ring. And so at the age of 14, I found myself being pimped out and hooked on crack cocaine. And that was the life that I had for the next almost 6 years.
It's hard to even find words to say anything whenever you hear a story this deep. It's just like the demonic influence that was following you in your life every step of the way, Satan trying to steal, kill, and destroy you. Obviously, God has big plans for you, because that light was getting snuffed out every chance he had. I mean, you can't make up the circumstances you're telling me right now. I mean, it's it's just like each time I feel like, man, Lord, when does the hope come? But for so long, it was just one thing after another. If one more person you put trust in that failed you when you needed it the most.
Yeah.
Gosh. So 6 years of being addicted to even harder drugs.
Oh, yeah.
To being pimped out, to being sold. I mean, is there a point where you just physically get used to your body almost being used that?
Yeah. It was, so, I mean, I felt so, I mean, I wasn't worth anything.
Right.
I didn't know what love was. I didn't know what security was. I didn't know what safety was. And so it was very normal for me. Like, it had become normal for me very quick. And the people who who were pimping me out, they were horrible people, you know. I'm one, you know, the brother of the main pimp that I was being pimped out by, he actually went to prison for beheading his wife,
Oh my goodness.
the mother of his child. And I mean, I remember being 15 years old and seeing her picture by the police, bringing it to the flop house and asking if we knew who she was. And I knew it was her, you know, and couldn't say anything.
That must have been terrifying.
It was terrifying. And, but these were the kind of people that had control of me, you know? And so I got beaten on a regular basis. I mean, just for looking wrong, just for, you know, but they were, but they had me convinced that the one loved me and cared about me. And it's just, it's so sick and demonic that the way that they can control your mind and your emotions and have you convinced that they care about you. I mean, it's hard to describe, you know? But then, you know, the main pimp who's telling me that I'm his number one is sleeping with another girl right in front of me. And, you know, so here I am like being crushed and being treated so bad, but thinking that that's normal, you know, not knowing the difference at that point.
Yeah.
And so, you know, yeah, so I was beaten a lot. I don't know how many times I've been raped. You know, the people out there are sick. They're so sick, you know, and I was made to get into a car with a guy. And from the very beginning, I knew, no, that's not a good thing. No. And I was made to get into the car with this person, and they wound up pulling a gun on me. And I wound up jumping out of the vehicle while it was moving. And I mean, I was ate up with road rash and should have been in the hospital, but
Kidnapped twice.
I've been kidnapped twice, and not for ransom either. You know, it wasn't for ransom. It was, you know, I had two pimps that kidnapped me and took me to a hotel, had their way with me for days, and then took me back and told my pimp that I was just a dirty, nasty, you know, whatever. And so, you know, and one person that kidnapped me was because they thought that they were going to love me to health, you know, that they were going to love me and fix me. And their brother, thank goodness, talked some sense into them, and they took me back to where I was, you know, but it was just crazy.
Was there ever any part of you that was trying to understand why the world was the way it was? Or were you just so focused on survival that that's all you could think about? Yeah,
Survival.
I mean, I couldn't even imagine you being able to have like a contemplative thought of like, why is the world like it's just constantly like dodging and weaving. And
it's crazy that you say that, because that's exactly like the memories, the way my brain goes when I try to, when I think about how it was for me. It was just like,
It was fight or flight.
It was fight or flight, survival, survival, survival. I mean, there was times where I would, you know, I've told this to my husband before, where I had survived a rape, okay, and have to get right into another vehicle just so I could successfully make money to go back to the pimp.
oh man,
Because if I went back empty-handed, he was going to beat me.
right?
You know? And so all this stuff is just being pushed down, suppressed. Then when I was 17 and a half years old, I found out my mom died. You know, my mom died of cancer. She got cancer again and died. And I never had any closure, you know? And I had to hitchhike to her funeral. And when I got there, I mean, this is just more trauma. When I get there, my whole family's sitting on one side and I'm by myself on the other side of the funeral home. I mean, it was just like that, you know, like something you would see in a movie.
Yeah.
And then, you know, but
Okay, I don't want to jump too far ahead because I really want you to be able to lay out everything. But I got a question for Shawn real quick. I know this story doesn't get told to you in one night, but as she's starting to reveal this to you, what is it like to receive this kind of story?
It's heartbreaking.
It is. How did you like go about building trust whenever you knew she had already been like so broken?
One of the first things I told her about me is that if I can't trust you, I don't want you.
Wow.
And that's just something I've kind of been like my whole life. You know, if I can't trust you, I ain't gonna make friends with you because I can't trust you. You know, and that was just a rule that we had early on. And
I'm sure it's a rule she needed in her life at that
Right.
point, because like trust didn't seem to be very reciprocated in her
And
case.
I told her that was both ways. If you can't trust me, why would you want me? You know,
Yeah.
it goes both ways. It's not just from me to her; it's from her to me as well.
Yeah.
But I just knew for some reason that there was a really good person there.
Mm.
You know, and she treated me really well. She had just gotten out of a bad marriage like 6 months before we got together.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of figured I could be the first good person in her life that would, you know, try to do right by her instead of knock her down all the time.
You saw her for the person inside, not the consequences, not the everything that had happened to her, but you saw the good that was still in there.
And it was too, it's like some of her brokenness, like her drug addiction, her wildness of wanting to party, went right along with me. I was a biker at the time, and you know, we'd do poker runs and this.
We
and that.
partied well together.
We partied hard together. I mean, we're functioning addicts. You know, we
had
both,
a lot of fun.
We both maintained jobs. We both were there on time and for as long as it took to get the job done and come home. But when we were home, we were cracking beers, breaking open bottles, smoking joints, snorting lines. It didn't matter what it was. If it was there, we were doing it.
Man.
And we partied hard together, you know, and that was kind of where we built our relationship was, well, for 13 years, we partied hard.
Yeah.
We've been married 20.
That's all.
Turned the volume down on that thing, I thought.
It's okay. I've had my phone go off plenty of times during the.
But no, for like 13 years, that was kind of like our main connection, is that we partied together every day.
It was our common denominator,
you know,
Right.
you know, was to party,
Yeah, have a good time.
to have that good time.
And for you, it was probably some of the first times you were able to even have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy because it's still, we know now, it's still sin. It's still living wrong. It's still leading us to terrible consequences.
Yeah.
But man, it must have been some of the happiest you had ever been up until that point.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to get your perspective a little bit on that, because I'm always curious as to the man's perspective on when you meet a woman who's been through so much trauma, what steps do you take to build trust? How do you even absorb that? You know, it is heartbreaking, and it is like, how do you be the man she needs you to be after she's obviously been through so much? And, you know, obviously when you guys first met, you guys still weren't, you know, living right. So for you, you were just like, we got to build trust, but we're still going to party and they're going to have a good time. And that's kind of where you guys bonded. Jody and I, when we first got together, I was a big old pothead myself. So smoking was like our DNA, you know, that's what we like to do. So I totally get what that's like, forming a relationship around that. And for me, a big part of my story that the audience has heard probably 100 times is I went from marijuana to alcohol. I got 2 misdemeanors, had a peanut cut for 6 months. So I started drinking while I was doing that and just never put it down for a good while. And so my identity was pothead to basically full on alcoholic, thinking, you know, I'm in my 20s. This is what 20-year-olds do. And you know, it's interesting to think, like, if I would have just stayed a pothead, would I still be a pothead today? Would it take me having to go down even a harder path of drinking to really destroy myself to kind of let the Lord build me back up? I don't know. God worked it out for his good. That's what matters. But that's when our relationship hit its hardest point, was whenever I was constantly drunk, constantly. It just made me a different person and all that good stuff. So I didn't want to throw you too far off of where you were in your story. If you could just kind of pick back where you were and keep on rolling.
Okay. So my mom died when I was 17 and a half. Okay. I had 6 months to go until I was going to be 18. And this this flop house that I was at was being watched. And so, and I had been picked up for vagrancy on more than one occasion, which is where you are a minor and you're living on the streets without a guardian. And so I had been picked up for that a couple times. And
they never try to stick you in a home or anything?
no, they would call my mom. My mom actually came and picked me up from the police station and then dropped me off on wherever I told her to drop me off. So, and of course I was waiting for her to ask me to come home.
Right.
Which she, she said, when are you going to come home? And I said, when is he going to be out of the house? And that wasn't happening. So, so when my mom died, it was like I was on a trick. I was not in the house when it got raided. And I think the police did that on purpose. I think they waited for me to be out of the house because they didn't want me to get a drug charge put on me. Because they knew who I was. They knew who I was.
Yeah.
And so in that raid, I was picked up and I was going to be placed into foster care because I had 6 months to go till I was 18. Now I've been living on my own for 3.5 years at this point, and I was very strung out. So they were trying to find a guardian, somebody in my family who would take me in for 6 months rather than putting me into foster care system.
Right.
Nobody would take me. And I remember I said to them, why don't you check and see if my father is alive or dead? Because I have a feeling he's not really dead. Well, they never came back and told me for sure if he was alive or dead. They just told me they couldn't find anybody who would take me in. So they placed me in a foster home in St. Petersburg. And it was not a foster home that I was going to fit into. See, the flop house that I was in, they were of color.
Okay.
Okay. So the state put me in an all-colored foster home.
Wow.
So there was one other Caucasian girl who was younger, and then me. And I was actually the oldest one in this foster home. So I could get a job. I had more leniency. Well, I got a job right away. And in the middle of me going to work, one of my old tricks saw me walk into work and picked me up. And that was that. Like, I went out and got really high and, didn't show up for work the next day and blah, blah, blah. Well, no, I'm sorry. Let me back that up. Before that, I got into a fight with the girl who had been pushing me around at the foster home. And I got into a fist fight with her. And when I left, after the fist fight, I left. And that's whenever I saw the person, they picked me up, blah, blah, blah.
Gotcha.
And so from that point on, I was on the run. And I had been trying to tell my counselor the whole time, my caseworker, this is not going to work out. This is not going to work out. There's going to be something that's going to happen, because they did not like me there. And so anyway, so I was a runaway for the next couple years. And so I got back into the same situation that I was in, same set of people, because some of them had gotten released from jail. And so when I was 19, I found myself waking up in a hospital bed where I had had emergency facial reconstructive plastic surgery because one of the pimps had beaten me half to death. And so...
You don't remember anything about the incident?
Oh, I remember the incident.
Okay.
I mean, I was blacking in and out, coming in and out of consciousness. But yeah, I remember.
What caused him to beat you so bad?
Because he walked up on me in action with a trick.
Okay.
And he had a jealous fit. He just snapped.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And the person that I was with just left me, because they were scared to death. So, so I woke up from this surgery, and there was this person who was much older, who I called him Old Man Hal. And I knew him for the whole time I've been on the streets. Well, he had been notified somehow that I was in the hospital. And so because of the people that rented or that managed the motel that I was staying at, because the flop house was no longer available, but the people were. So we were now going from motel to motel. Okay. And so the managers of this motel knew I had been beaten, and they're the ones that got me the help that they got me. And they contacted this person that I knew. So old man Hal was there when I woke up from the surgery, and he told me, "You're done. No more streets. You're going to die out here." And so he nursed me back to health, and I got a job bartending. I lived on Clearwater Beach. So I got off the streets, you know, but I was so much a drug addict and just high as a kite and drunk all the time and full of all this anger and resentment and bitterness and brokenness, you know. And I was 19. And so, you know, I was getting into bar fights, and I was getting into these kinds of fights, and I was, you know, I worked, but I was just a very angry person and very hurt person. And I treated Hal horribly bad. And so, you know, I went into every horrible relationship that you could possibly think of. The men that I chose, they would beat me, because that's all I was worth there. And that's all I was going to find. You know, there was no good men. There was no good people, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was almost like I had this sign on my head that just said, you know, if you like to treat people bad, I'm yours.
Right.
You know?
Man.
And so that's the kind of people that I was very much into the bad boys, you know? And that was who I dated. They were not nice people. And so, you know, that went on until I was 26, 25. And then I started dating a guy. And that's a really long story, but he treated me, you know, he was married, and he had a little girl, a baby girl. But there was definitely a connection, and he wound up taking his own life because we were not going to work out, you know, because of him being married and this and that. And it was horrible. But there's a long backstory to that that's just way too long. But yeah, so I carried that guilt around for a long time because, you know, he told me that if I didn't come back to him, he was going to end his life. And I just laughed at him basically and said, "Oh, come on, Robert, you know, you're not going to do that." And he did. Yeah. And so his wife told me on the phone that it was because of me, you know, and so that didn't help with the guilt, you know.
Yeah.
And so, in that tragedy is where I met my ex-husband because I was working at a restaurant where he was a manager. And so he was going to console me through all that.
That's a tale as old as time right there.
Yeah. So, you know, he consoled me through that, and he was married.
Oh, man.
Oh, I know.
Man.
But he was going to get, you know, he was getting a divorce is from what I was told. You know, he was just absolutely miserable, and this was something that was going on, you know.
The whole story.
Yeah, the whole story. He had a brand new baby. I mean, it was just, yeah, so.
Oh, come on.
Sorry,
I love your country-like ringtones. Like shotgun going off. What was the ringtone? It was like something.
Harley firing up.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
So that's where I met my ex-husband.
Yeah.
You know, and so I fell for him. He had a family, you know, he had the whole family. He had the mom, the dad, the grandparents, the brothers, the sisters, the children, you know, and I was definitely wanting to be a mom. You know, I wanted to love a child like I had never been loved.
Right.
And so I fell for his children, you know, and, you know, he went through his divorce and, yeah, so we were getting married, and he actually, the first time he ever hit me was outside the courthouse getting our marriage license. And I still married him because I thought I could change him.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that I could change him. You know, I was a good person. I mean, yes, I was very broken and I was very addicted but I still had, which is just crazy. I had a care for people. You know, I put other people before me all the time. And that's why I got hurt all the time.
Right.
You know, which is just kind of crazy that I even was willing to put other people's needs before myself.
I was thinking that to myself. That would be, I could see you going the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
And so for you to still have like a mothering heart of wanting to be a mother, to care for people, that is amazing.
Yeah. And I was just looking for somebody to love me for me.
Right.
You know, and unfortunately I looked for all of that in all the wrong places and all the wrong people. And of course I didn't know God. You know, I didn't know God. And the one God, you know, I'd heard about him, but he obviously didn't love me. He didn't even see me. You know, I was lost in the shuffle somewhere. It's kind of how I always felt, you know. So I was married to my ex-husband for 10 years. And it wasn't all bad, you know. The mental and emotional abuse was pretty bad. You know, he did physically hit me, you know, several times through our marriage. And it wasn't like he would continue to hit me. It was one of those where no control over his anger. And so in that heat of the moment, he would hit me. And so it was more forgivable, I guess, in my eyes. Like it was more my fault. You know, I looked at it like it was my fault. Like I pushed him to that or whatever, that's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, you know? Yeah. And so...
But I mean, that's all you knew.
That's all I knew.
It wasn't like, now there's some hindsight to it, but that's all you knew in the time.
Yeah.
So I can totally understand why you felt that way.
Yeah. And so I got to the point where I left, you know, I was not going to be treated like that anymore. And so I divorced him, and it was the hardest thing I ever did. Because I knew I was not just divorcing him, I was divorcing a family. You know, it was the first time that I had any sense of what a family was, you know. And I knew I would never see his kids again. So that was a very hard decision. And I did that through being drunk, you know. I had that liquid courage. And I was able to leave at that time, I was an in-the-closet drinker because, you know, I had 2 DUIs under my belt. And, of course, I was the problem. And so I was, you know, he had me convinced that I was an alcoholic and that I was the problem, when really I wasn't. I wasn't an alcoholic. I was drinking to numb. So I was drinking vodka in the closets, literally. You know, he had gotten it to where I wasn't working at my job anymore. He had me working from home.
Had your car on blocks.
He had
for
my
6
car
months.
on blocks for almost a year when all they needed was brakes. So here I am now. I'm just in the house all the time.
He had her locked down as a babysitter,
Basically.
So slowly but surely, he just slowly took control of your life.
Yes.
Wouldn't let her go to the store by herself or nothing because she might meet somebody.
Yeah. I mean, so he was very, you know, very controlling from the beginning.
Okay.
You know, like when I met him, I was trying to get my GED because of course I didn't have a high school diploma, you know?
Right.
And so I remember saying to him, you know, please, I'm trying to get my diploma, my GED. Don't deter me from that because we were going to be moving to another state. I'm like, I'm trying to pursue this because, of course, I needed to go to school for it because, you know, I didn't go to high school.
Right.
So I needed some education before I could go and take this GED test. Oh, no, I would never do that. I'm not going to deter you from doing that, you know. And that was the first thing he did was deter me from getting my education. And so I had no credit. I had no education, you know. I wanted to build credit with him, but he wouldn't allow it. You know, everything was in his name. Everything was in his name. So I had no credit. And so I was very much dependent on him. And so I did. I got the nerve and I was able to leave that marriage. But it was very difficult. And I said some horrible things to him because I was drunk, and he got even with me. After I left the marriage, I was missing him one time really bad, missing the kids more than anything. And he talked me into coming back, let's work this out. And I was convinced we were going to work it out. Things would be different. And when I did go back, it was a setup. He he totally blindsided me and didn't want me. Yeah. He actually wanted me to sell my car because I was in another state, and he wanted me to sell my car, take a bus down because my car had broke down. I'm like, no, I'm not selling my vehicle. That's all I had. But he really wanted me to be with nothing.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, yeah. So I realized, well, this was his payback, and so it wasn't too long after that I had lunch with our mutual friend. And at the end of lunch, she was like, oh, my friend Shawn. I'm like, what? She's like, I have the perfect guy for you to meet. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not meeting nobody. What are you talking about? I'm ready to live single and just be me.
Yeah.
No, you got to meet him. He's a great guy, blah, blah, blah. Well, we go our separate ways, and I'm driving down the road. I get this phone call, and it's her. And she says, okay, I just got off the phone with my friend Shawn. He's not dating anybody. So I'm giving you his phone number, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't want to meet nobody. She's like, I don't want you to marry the guy. I'm just asking you to go out on a date with him,
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually, it wasn't too long. My curiosity got the best of me because I called her up one time, and I'm like, what are you doing? She's going, oh, I'm going to meet my buddy Shawn for a drink,
Yeah.
I'm like, you are? She's like, yeah, we get together every once in a while. And she's like, why? You want to meet up with us? So I did. And
I never forgave her.
Yeah, I did. And we were married 8 months later.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy, But, it was weird because whenever we met, I was like, you better run. I told him, yeah, we've had fun, but if feelings are starting to come into the play, you need to turn and run.
Yeah.
I had no idea how serious she was.
And so the poor guy, I was just a broken mess. And, but I was very honest with him from the beginning. This is who I am.
It came in bits and pieces along the way.
But my drug addiction, it was very on the table. I would put it out there. I was like, the only problem that I have with drugs is that they're illegal. That's the only problem I have with them. I do them all. Don't try to change me. Don't try to control me. Don't try to stop me from being who I am. I had been controlled my entire life. And I was not going to be controlled. I was like, so you either accept me for that or that's it, and he was like good with it because he liked to party,
Mm-hmm.
And then, the parts of my life that were so broken, the first thing that I admitted to him I confided in him was that I was not a high school graduate. And this is where I knew I had to be with him, was because we had been, together for about a month or whatever. And I opened up to him and I said, I didn't graduate high school. I only went to the 8th grade. I started the 9th grade and I dropped out in the first semester. And, I wanted to get my GED, but I was deterred from that. And I had just signed up in a community college for a GED course.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted him to know that. But I also wanted him to, make the decision if he was going to dump me for that or not, because of being ashamed of me. And so he's like, that's no big deal. Well, the next time I went to his house, which was the next day, he had a spare room all set up into an office for me. He was like, there was a calculator, there was paper, there was pens, there was pencils, there was the whole 9 yards. And he's like, this is for you. you go after that goal because I know you can do it.
Yeah.
And that was the first time in my life I had ever been told that I could accomplish something.
Wow.
That was the first time in my life anybody said something positive to me.
Yeah. Even though you didn't have like a spiritual foundation with your family, you at least had a good enough family to teach you how to treat other people. And I think that goes a long way. Like God had grace in that to give you that kind of ability to encourage her, to do something for her that she had never seen before. And I see that as God working in your lives even before y'all even saw him.
Yeah.
And just to touch on it real quickly, you said something there that just really like burned in my ears when you said it. It was like, oh my gosh, identifier. Don't try to change who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you're talking about drugs, that was who you were.
That's who I was.
And it's like, oh my gosh, when it comes to any kind of identity outside of Christ, you hear it with addicts, you hear it with people who are sexually confused. That's who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, the light bulb went off in my head. Like, I know I've said that before or something just like that.
Yeah.
That is something. And if you hear that coming out of someone's mouth, you can ding it right on the head. You know exactly where they're falling short is. Their identity is in something like a drug, like this, like that, the other, a person. And so don't try to change me for who I am. That is such a ploy that the world uses to keep people in bondage to whatever it is. It could be to anything.
Yeah. And my worth was sex. And that's it. There was no worth. I had nothing to offer anybody,
Yeah.
And the only way that I ever got attention was through sex. You know what I mean? And it was negative. It was negative attention. And that was it was like, I felt like that's all I was ever good for, And so.
It's something that I'm even realizing. I'm only, a few years into marriage, going on 6 years of marriage myself. So I'm still, I'm kind of newer to it, I guess, but I'm realizing even more and more that I had sex so confused whenever I was younger because I had it young and because I had it with the wrong people.
Yeah.
That I really truly didn't understand the importance of it, and I was making the relationships based on that.
Yes.
That's all I could offer. I didn't know how else to, even have like a healthy conversation. That was just like the go-to, right? And so it's crazy how it takes some time to like rewire your brain to realize it's a blessing.
Yes.
And there's a right way to do it, but it's not the only thing that matters or the only thing you can offer somebody. But you do start thinking of sex that way.
Yeah.
As a tool.
And it's an addiction too.
Exactly. You're exactly
very
right.
much an addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was something that I kind of brought into her life, like she didn't already have enough of it, was in the 7 years that I was divorced from my first wife to meeting her, probably 6 months or so after being divorced, like I said, all I did was hunt and fish and work.
Mm-hmm.
You don't meet women hunting and fishing and working.
Right.
So it's like I was having a really hard time ever meeting anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got hooked up, our second date was a hog hunt. Had her waist deep in the swamp, and she stuck with me. I'm like, this girl's cool, she could hang with me.
Yeah.
Because that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to stop hog hunting and stop whatever to be able to now go to a bar or whatever because that, she wouldn't do what I wanted to do. I wanted a girl that would come and do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So we got hooked up that way, but then something that had been activated in me kind of was, like I said, like 6 months after I got divorced from my first wife, this guy I met at work, we got talking about, well, how's your place going and what have you been doing and this and that. We got talking about the fact that I hadn't met anybody, to date or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, man, I got the place for you. It's called Ranch Foreplay. It was a swingers club.
Okay.
And he's like, you can go out there, $60 for a single guy to get in, bring your own beer, and he said, you'll have a blast. No commitments, nothing. Just, go out there, get it out of your system and come home.
Wow.
Well, that became a one to two time a month thing for the next 7 years.
Wow.
So when I met her, as she was slowly telling me about her past and this and that, no girl that you meet is ever, oh yeah, let's get with other people. It's like,
Yeah.
they're all about being possessive. And the more she was telling me about her past life, the more I'm thinking she's the only one that's ever going to accept the lifestyle that I've kind of became friendly with.
Wow.
And I ended up introducing her to that, which I was being selfish because not thinking of the trauma that it's put her through. I'm just thinking of she'd be willing to do this. And so selfishly, she felt like she brought so much brokenness to our relationship that she kind of felt like she owed it to me. And I didn't know that she felt that way. Totally. She did make it apparent later on, but yeah, we ended up for 13 years on and off doing that, so that it was another addiction that we were carrying through. And
It was horrible.
It's truly heartbreaking when we look back at our lives and see what in our flesh the enemy used us to do in other people's lives. The influences, the roads we maybe paved for someone to just drive straight down and be on for years. And I know I have people in my life I think of all the time, pray for them, and would love to be a positive influence now. But it's like it gut wrenches you when you think about it, like, oh man, if I could have just avoided that, like, why would I have done that?
Yeah.
But we all have those. And so thank God you guys made it through that season. But I can imagine that being very tough.
So, I mean, it was, like he said, I felt like I owed it to him, and I had, we did a little bit here and there when we lived in Florida, and then it really got deeper when we moved here. Some of the things that we did with other people, but I was doing meth, and it was the one drug that I didn't let him know I was doing. It's like I was so ashamed of it for some reason.
And I was, out of all the drugs there was, that's the one I was 100% against, because I watched a neighbor of mine in Florida go from being 250 pounds down to like 160
So
and lost everything he had over it.
And so we were exploring with the whole, getting with other people or whatever. And the only reason was because I was hiding my secret, and I felt so horrible about it. So I put on this poker face, and, but I mean, it was horrible. I would, I was physically ill from it. And I would say to him, I would make us 2 hours late to meet people. And I mean, I was doing everything I could to sabotage that stuff. And he was just so selfish in his addiction. It was like, he didn't even see it,
To me, I looked at it like it was the ultimate trust builder.
Wow.
Well, I mean, if you're a jealous person and a jealous couple, it's like you don't trust them for nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, I seen you looking at him, or I seen him looking at you.
Yeah.
I can't trust that, and leave you two alone anywhere because I don't know what you might be doing.
Wow.
And to me, it was the ultimate. It's like I thought in my mind that it made us that much closer and that much stronger and that much tighter.
In reality, I was hating
trust.
him. Like I was getting this resentment towards him. Like,
Wow.
And it took a while for all that to come to a head, It took a lot of fights because, like I said, I did everything I could to sabotage the meetings. And I sabotaged them, for the most part. But I mean, I was it broke every little bit of spirit in me that I did have, It got to the point where I was just feeling like I was being violated. You know, I was going right back to those places where it was horrible. Here I was trying to find myself, putting myself into a good place in my mind during those horrible moments, you know? And I was like, I just can't do that no more. And so that came to an end. But
did you finally have a realization of what it was doing, or how did it come to an end?
I'm trying to remember. I remember you came to me with it and basically said that's it, and then you kind of opened up to me about what it was doing.
I mean, I told him, I said, I feel like I'm being raped over and over again every time that I try to make you happy with this.
Yeah.
It's killing me. It's absolutely killing me.
And
It's crazy how sometimes just a conversation can change things, because it's probably something you had never even thought about, right? And so when you're hearing that, you're like, oh my gosh. Like, I had been so convinced that we're building trust, that this is just the way our relationship's meant to be. And then,
she's just cool.
Yeah. I mean, man, and I say it on here all the time, if you're married or dating or whatever, like, communication is so important. Because you think someone might know what you're thinking, but they don't. And especially coming from a guy, we will be as blind as bat, we're oblivious. And if we've convinced ourselves that something's okay, we sometimes need someone to highlight, like, hey, this for me is not okay. Communication's so important.
Especially if you're in your addiction.
100%.
You know, because we are so selfish in our addiction.
Yeah.
You know?
And this is kind of one of the problems, was because she was aggravated with me for wanting to do this, and I was aggravated with her for doing the meth.
Right.
It's like we were kind of always bickering. And I made
so ridiculous.
It's like I made a joke out of it, but it was real. I used to say conversation is the leading cause of arguments.
Right.
So our best conversation was just having sex. You know, it's like that was the one thing we did together great. We had a hard time talking.
Yeah.
That is the enemy,
I didn't know
right?
I didn't know how to talk. You got to remember, I didn't have a voice.
Right.
So every person before him, I didn't have a say in things. I didn't have a voice. There was no communicating, you know? So I was very ignorant to how to communicate.
Yeah.
And it was easier for me to just do whatever sometimes, you know, to just keep peace. Because that's the way I was programmed.
Yeah.
You just keep your mouth shut, you know, you don't have an opinion, and just go with the flow.
Yeah.
And that's the life that's because my opinion didn't matter anyway. And then whenever these things were going on, I went right back to that place where that's all I was worth anyway. And if I don't do this, he's going to leave me. So it was that kind of thing. I owed him, and he's going to leave me if I don't, because that's all I'm worth anyway. I don't have anything else to offer him. You know, in my mind, in my sick, broken, delusional mind, that's where I was at.
Yeah.
So I would do whatever. And I love him. I loved him, you know, I loved him right away. He, you know, and I certainly didn't want to lose him, you know?
Yeah, I was partying because I loved to party, and the whole sex thing, I was just thinking, man, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And the whole time I was just destroying her mentally and didn't even realize it.
Yeah. I appreciate y'all's perspective on that, because I say communication is important. I truly believe it. But from your perspectives in those times, that was hard to do, almost impossible. You were better at sex than it was to have a conversation. For you, having a conversation, to even think of having one, is like a mountain to climb. How did you guys get there? How did you guys learn how to communicate?
Well, it wasn't until after Christ.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I had hid the meth use for several years from him because I was on everything else anyway. It was easy to hide from him, you know, and he discovered it. And he told me, you know, basically I told him right then, you know, you don't expect me to quit, you know?
Yeah.
I told you from the beginning, you know? And so eventually when he saw that I wasn't going to put that down, and you know, I didn't put us into debt because of it, because I was a middleman. So I always had stuff.
It seems like that's, from my understanding of meth, a lot of people try to play that game where they have just enough to
Yep.
keep their supply and,
Yep.
and all
And
that
I
stuff.
always had enough,
Yeah.
you know? And so, so he got to the point where he was like, well, I guess I need to find out what this is about. You know, what's so good about this stuff that she won't put it down for me. And so now we're both on it.
I've always had a very strong willpower.
Very much.
It didn't matter what drug it was, even pot, the one I love the most. When I had to quit,
Boom, he'd
that
be
day,
done.
cold turkey, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I could quit because I always had the mentality of, as long as I've got the pot and the pot don't have me, I'm good with it. You know, but if I get to the point on a drug where it's got me, I need to get off of it.
Yeah.
And I knew that I didn't want to do meth. I was scared of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to figure out what it was doing to her, what the benefits was to it, that I couldn't get her off of it. So I decided, I know I can quit it. So I got on it with her.
Wow.
And for 2 years, we were rocking and rolling.
It was a bad deal,
Mm.
you know? And so, you know, eventually it just got to where, you know, it's crazy because I would look out the window and him and I could be in this huge, huge fight. And he would say things to me that were just so heart-wrenchingly hurtful. And I remember looking out the window with him outside and just think, what have you done to him? Sheryl, look at what you have created.
Mm.
You have created a monster.
Mm.
Because he was becoming somebody I didn't know. His words were so hurtful. My words were so hurtful.
Mm.
It was getting really, really bad. And I just remember I blamed myself. I carried that guilt, you know.
Just another guilt to carry, huh?
Just another guilt to carry.
Man.
And then it got to the point where he didn't care about the words that he was saying to me.
Mm.
He didn't have any emotion. He was desensitizing himself from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew this is getting really, really bad, you know?
I think the thing that brought that on was I've never been an angry person. I've never been a fighter or somebody who just loves getting mad and, you know, being aggressive.
Yeah.
And that's what I fell in love with, was his gentle demeanor, his whole gentleness.
It's like when we got together, I came with an entire semi-truck load of patience.
Yes,
You know, it's like,
he did.
and at the point of where we were at there, I was carrying what patience I had left in my pocket.
Wow.
You know,
It
it's
was
like
bad.
I had no patience left because she...
Not with me anyway. He did
Now,
with other people.
Other people, yeah, still had that whole truckload.
Oh, yeah, but not with
But
me.
with her, what I had left would fit in my pocket, and I came with a truckload of it. You know, so it's like we would just snap on each other so fast.
Mm.
And we got into an argument one day. It started at like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. And she's one of those that when she's upset about something,
I want to fix it now.
she wants to talk about it and fix it now. But at the same time, she would run this argument in a full circle and then start right back where she started and run it in a full circle and run it in a full circle.
Because I never felt like it was fixed.
Well, after
you know,
after the third time around the circle, I'd jump off the crazy train and just let her go in circles.
and this is
well,
after
she
being
would-
up for days, you know.
So she would be on her thing, and I would just leave the house and go to the shop.
Right.
Well, next thing you know, she's out
Well,
at
he
the
doesn't
shop.
love me. He doesn't love me, you know, and that's where my brain would go. He
And I'm
doesn't
just
love
like-
me. He doesn't love me.
I'm like, 'cause each time around this circle, it gets a little bit more aggravated. It gets a little bit louder.
Heated.
The cuss words start coming out more
Yeah.
and more. The names start coming out more and more. And once you get to that point, you're no longer discussing the topic. You're mad at each other because of what name I just
And you're
called
trying to outdo the other one on the name
Right.
calling.
So
now.
it's like-
How can I hurt him
you.
more?
Put this thing away. We'll talk about this tomorrow. I got to step off this. And I would go to the shop. Well, she'd come to the shop and just keep right on me. And I'd turn around and go to the house. And she'd come to the house and keep right on me. And I'd go back to the shop and I'd jump on the four-wheeler and I'd leave. And I'd come back and she'd be right on me. Well, it was going on 2 o'clock the following morning. Same argument, still going. We've been up for 4 or 5 days straight, just jacked up on alcohol, meth, weed, you name it. And I needed to go to bed. I was absolutely out of my mind, couldn't think, couldn't hardly function, wanted to go to bed. So it's like, I don't know, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. I went in the bedroom and laid down, and she kept coming in there and just standing over me and just letting me have it. And then she'd walk out, and I'd just about get to sleep, and here she come again. And she just kept doing this and doing this. And I got so mad at her, I'm just like, leave me alone. And she just wouldn't do it. Well, one of the last things I remembered her saying was, she goes, "You are a brave man." She said,
You're either brave or stupid.
she's like, you're going to lay here and fall asleep. She said, "I would come in here and knock you over the head with something or shoot you with one of your guns, And I'm just
man.
like, and I knew her past. I knew where she came from. I knew it was completely within her, deck of playing cards. So I put, I put my pistol under my pillow and just about got to sleep. And she come in that bedroom again. And my first thought went to get this done with. And I pulled the pistol out, and somewhere between here and actually pointing it right at her, it wasn't an audible voice, but something just told me, if you do this, it ain't going to end well for either one of you.
Wow.
She'd be dead. I'd be in prison. And I just had this anger, rage in me that was like, I still need to get this point across. So I just fired it into the floor. And she looked at me like I was crazy, left the room. And, it was like, I laid there in bed and I just kept thinking, you should be on your way to prison right now. What have you let this become? How have you become this person? How have you gotten so far off track that you've almost shot your wife? And I laid there and thought about that, and I'm like, I can't do this no more. I'm done with this. I'm not doing meth no more. I'm not, I'm done with this life.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the turning point. And then she ended up taking my bag of weed that she just bought me, thinking that she was getting over on me. And she left the house, went, and I'll let you tell the story.
So,
Can I just say before you tell me more, what a picture you guys just painted right there with that story of the circular conversation and everything you guys just said. Like, I could feel myself being in the room with
in the
you.
chaos.
I mean, that is just a beautiful, not beautiful, but just a really awesome way you guys described it and articulated it, because it was like I was there with you guys in that, and I could feel it every step of the way. And everyone's been in a situation like that. But not to that, and not everyone's been to one that extreme to get to the point you guys got to. I just want to say that was incredible. So,
yeah. So, I want to say that before that night, there was something that had happened spiritually. So before that actual night, my husband first of all, he knew. We both knew this elderly man who had been he died in a fire, and Shawn had gone to his funeral.
He was kind of like my grandfather to me.
And Shawn come home from the funeral and was just absolutely beside himself. And this was probably a couple months before this night happened. Okay. He come home and I was down with a headache. I'm on disability for chronic migraines. Okay. And so I was in bed with a migraine, and he come home and was just bawling and really freaking out, having like a panic attack from this funeral. And he said, "Sheryl, we have got to go to church. We got to find a church and go to church." Something happened at that funeral that clicked something in him. And I said, okay, because, there was little times that I would go to a church and I'd hear a sermon. I was kind of seeking. And when I was married to my ex-husband, my neighbor friend across the street he's a Christian. And, him and I had a lot of talks. And he had been praying for me And he had been praying for Shawn too, I think, all along. You know,
So little seeds
little
have been
seeds
sowed.
had been planted and sown. And so from that funeral, Shawn was really freaked out. He's like, you know, we need to go to church. And I'm like, okay, you know. And so we did. We went to this church with a couple people that we had known that went to this church and heard a couple sermons, you know. And then we stopped going to that because the pastor got sick or something. But Shawn was magnet fishing down in our city, down in Smithland, you know, at this one area.
Boat ramp.
And this little old man come up to him and started talking to him. And, you know, started talking about Jesus to Shawn and invited him to Bible study. So we went to this little church named Sugar Creek out by where we live. And the guy who was doing the Bible study, he was actually filling in because they needed a pastor. So he was a pastor who was filling in at the time, him and his wife, and we clicked with them, you know. And so we went back a few times, you know, went to a few of the Sunday services. So this little old man who had originally talked to him actually wound up leading Shawn to the Lord before this night ever happened with the pistol.
Wow.
Okay. And then a day after that or 2 days after that, he led me to the Lord. But we weren't fully in. Okay. So I just want to make that clear. You know, we got baptized right after that, but we weren't serious about it. Okay.
Came home and got high to celebrate.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, our intentions were good. You know, we knew that we needed something, but we weren't ready.
Got you.
Okay. So then the night happens with him shooting the pistol into the floor. Okay. And through that fight, you know, of course he was crazy, you know, not me, but he was crazy. You know, I see the flare of the bullet, you know, when he fired, and I was like, oh, you are crazy.
And I'm like, good, I can go to bed.
I've got to leave you, you know, I can't be with you. You're nuts.
Did you point it at her and then point it at the ground and shoot, or do you remember what that was?
I never made it at her. I came from under the pillow to like right about here, and I was like, and I just stopped for a second.
Squeezed it.
Gotcha. I was like,
yeah. So I just couldn't believe it, you know, and my reaction
and
was.
the room was dark, so all she seen was the muzzle blast go off, you know.
Yeah.
And so
that's crazy.
And that was a whole trigger for me too. You know, that violence was like, it took me to back to a place that was just, so I'm like, well, I've got his reefer, you know, I'm going to take that and, you know, cause I was the one that brought the drugs into the house, you know, so I'm going to get him, and he's not going to have his weed, you know, in my brain. And I'm just like,
I had just bought an ounce. I didn't care.
But anyway, so I get in my vehicle, and I've got clothes, and I've got this and I've got that, and I take off, you know, and I get pulled over because I had a soda between my legs, a fountain drink. I just bought this huge, big gulp kind of fountain drink, you know, and I'm driving down the road and the lid pops off. And so I swerve, you know, because it's spilling all over me. And a cop pulls up behind me. And of course, I'm not drunk, you know, but I'm under the influence of meth, you know. And so he pulls me over. And of course, he sees that I had just had a DUI for, you know, I didn't take it to trial, so I just pled guilty, but it was for meth also.
Okay.
And so he just knew I had a DUI like a year before that. And so he gets me out of the car, and he's talking to me, and he does the whole roadside that I pass, you know. And he's getting ready to let me go. And he sees that there's something in my pocket. You know, well, what do you have? Looks like you have something in your pocket. And I'm like, oh, it must be a hair tie. And then I realized as soon as I put my hand in there to get it out, because he wanted to see, oh no.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, so I let him search the vehicle. You know, I told him what was in there, blah, blah, blah. So I got arrested. And of course, in that moment, he was destroying my life. You know, I'm just bawling and saying, please don't do this to me. You know, you are destroying me. He's like, no, I'm trying to save you. And I wish I knew his name. I wish, that I could thank him today,
Yeah.
But so I got arrested and, I got ROR'd the next day. And so when I was trying to reach him, of course, he didn't want nothing to do with me. And he'd seen it I guess somebody showed it to him in the paper, my picture and all this other stuff. And so when I did talk to him, he was mocking me, and telling me, oh, you're a celebrity now and all. I mean, he was so mean, so cold. And so my life was done, so I knew he didn't want to talk to me or have anything to do with me. And I just felt like my life was over, And so I went to this person that I thought was my friend who was really just a dope dealer, and just kind of had a fall apart and told her I didn't want to live no more, She told me she didn't care. So
Wow.
that was kind of a breaking point for me. So that night I was in my vehicle and I always carried a pocket knife and a very sharp pocket knife, And I found myself in my vehicle. It was probably about 10:30 at night, just hopeless, just absolutely hopeless. And just in such despair, because he was everything to me. My sister, in my life, she was everything to me too.
Yeah.
And I moved her up here. We moved her up here back in 2016. I felt like I was failing her, I felt like I was hopeless. And so I found myself with this pocket knife, and I was just rocking back and forth in my car, and I was just having it out with this God, that didn't love me, And I mean, I was yelling at him and crying and just uncontrollably shaken and just in despair, why have you not loved me? What have I done to deserve all of this? Why has my life been this, And I just went through the things that I had lost in my life, my family, my mother, the things that had happened. And I'm just yelling and just cussing him out, and just losing it. And just just let me do this one thing right. Just help me to end this,
Yeah.
And so I finally worked up the courage to open the knife and cut my wrist. And when I went to snap it open, I just couldn't snap it open. And there was a penny jammed in it, like completely jammed in it. And in that moment, I did not hear it audibly, but I felt it in my heart, this overwhelming love that I can't even explain. I knew without a doubt it was God, and I knew he loved me. And I knew he had a purpose for my life. Right there in that moment, I surrendered. And I said, I'm yours, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know what it means. But I can't do this myself anymore. Please, please help me. And so I made that conscious decision right then that I was going to follow him. I was going to spend the rest of my life serving him, and that I wanted my husband to be a part of that. But if he did not agree to it, that I would still follow the Lord. So I drove my car home, and I didn't go in. I didn't know what I was going to go into, so I just slept in my vehicle, if you want to call it sleeping, but, waiting for the sun to come up. And I went in, and he was still in the bed, and it was dark in our room. And I remember just saying to him, just hear me out, don't say anything. Just please listen to what I have to say. And then you can make your decision. But I just let him know what the night looked like for me the night before, and that I surrendered my life to Christ. And I told him about me getting ready to end my life. And I told him, I said, I love you. I have always loved you. And I just want us to be together and put God in the center of it. If you're willing to put God in the center with me, can we work this out? You know, but with or without you, I'm following Christ. And he said that in that moment, he knew something was different.
I still can't explain it to this day, but just looking at her, the look in her face, the words she was saying, I don't know what it was, or the combination of everything together, I could just tell something had changed. This wasn't another one of her
I'm sorry.
BS stories to try to smooth something over. It was
Genuine.
It was something
It was the
different.
Holy Spirit.
And I agreed to it right
Yeah.
off. I mean, it's like I was
didn't hesitate.
ready to sign divorce papers with a smile on my face before she walked into the house, and with less than 5 minutes of talking, I was ready to, stick with it and keep going.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we called up the pastor and his wife, that we had been, because they were doing church from their home. They were filling in at that place, but they were actually discipling couples, at their home that we had gone to a few times. And so we called them up and said, we would like to come over and talk with you too. So that was at like 8:00 at night, when we went over to sit with them and talk, and we were there till 4:30 in the morning.
I bet that was a conversation to be had, right?
And it was,
They knew absolutely everything about us.
they knew everything
before we
about us
left,
that we knew.
because
Mhm. We just
we
unloaded
we
it.
just wanted them to
Accept us. or
accept
not.
us for what we've been anyhow, or let us go now, because we don't want to be a part of your church, and then
Yeah,
5
we
years
find
down
out
the
who
road
we
have
are.
people going,
what-
you did what?
yeah.
Right.
You're out of here.
They were like, we loved you from the very beginning. We love you even more now,
Wow.
And so we've been with them ever since.
Yeah, that's true love. When you meet someone who's not shaken by the amount of mess we've made of our lives,
Yeah.
and they can stand there and still love you and
Yeah.
be confident. That takes, maturity, and that's awesome that's what you guys received, because that's what you needed in that moment.
Yeah. And I mean, we let them know everything. Everything
Yeah.
we've just told you, they know, So
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
why that must have been a while. They must have been just sitting there like, whoa.
they were just when they thought it was over, they're like, oh no, there's more.
Yeah, he had to call into work the next morning and call out, because he's like, there's no way I can go to work after this night.
Yeah, it was great. And so,
Oh man.
and but I mean, when I surrendered in the car that night, I surrendered. Like I told the Lord, that's it, I'm done, And so,
Well, through your DUI, long story short, she went to jail for 3 weeks, and in the 3 weeks she was there, she got placed in Lifeline, which do you
he
know
knows
about?
Lifeline.
Yeah, I've had quite a few guests from
Yeah.
Lifeline.
Yeah.
Okay, well, she got placed in Lifeline, and through the 6 months that she was there, just you've heard all the brokenness, everything through her whole life, that just nothing went right.
Yeah.
The place she was in her head should have taken years in an institution to have straightened out. She should have literally been institutionalized to ever have gotten past what she went through. And in 6 months, knowing God, it was done. That's what brought me to Christ.
It's truly amazing. It really is.
I love you, baby.
Quit.
Yeah. So yeah, that's because he's one of those that he's got to see it, feel it, touch it to know he can put his faith in it,
Yeah.
And not that he didn't believe that God was real before, but to see the miraculous transformation. I
just knew that, these people at Lifeline, they're just other people too that have all had the same problems that we had. There's nothing special that they did other than introduce her to God. It had to have been God that put her through. I mean,
supernatural, to change me.
Prior to going through all this, she couldn't think of tomorrow, next week, or next month for 2 seconds. It was all about the past. Why did this happen? How come that happened? Why wasn't I accepted? Why was this?
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
Trying to piece my broken life
It was
together.
like that's all that mattered to her was the past. She couldn't think of tomorrow for nothing.
Yeah.
And as soon as she got through with Lifeline and came home, it was like the past is all still there. She hasn't forgot it, but it's not where she's living anymore.
Yeah.
She was looking towards tomorrow. She's looking towards next week. She's looking towards next month, next year.
Yeah.
You know, and it just, I was like, how can you be past all of that when she was looking at going to, I don't even remember the name of the therapist, just down the road from here, kind of. But, you know, she was trying to get with a therapist that was going to put her through this
EMDR therapy
the therapy thing to try to resolve some
for
of this. And it's
post-traumatic
like,
or for
she no
PTSD.
longer needed it. You know, it
Praise
was
the Lord.
like, and I mean, I literally for years through just dealing with the craziness kept thinking, how am I ever going to,
Fix her.
well,
Help her.
not for me to fix you, but how am I ever going to get her to agree to go to in-house therapy somewhere where she would be basically institutionalized? Because everybody she went to for therapy, it's like, okay, well, it's January. We've got an appointment for you in March.
Yeah.
And then we'll have another one in, you know, November. Even it's
Right.
like,
I needed some intense.
yeah, it's like there was this hitting it every other month ain't going to do nothing. They're not even going to touch the surface of it. She needed basically 24-hour a day in-house
Yeah.
year-round therapy for several years to get by it, if she could ever get by it. And she came out of it not needing it.
all by the grace of God. All by his healing power, all by his redemption, all by his, you know, provisions. Nothing else. Just him.
When she went into Lifeline, I don't know if you know Rochelle Puckett.
Probably.
She was the one that did her intake.
Okay. I don't know if I might recognize her. I'm bad with names.
You probably know her.
I told her right out, I said, good luck with her. I said, she'll defy everything you try to teach her.
He said, hey, do y'all do shock therapy here? And she went, oh, no. He said, that's too bad because I really think she could benefit from it. Bye. He was right though. I mean, seriously, you know, that's how messed up I was. Now, when I went into Lifeline, I was already following Christ. So, and I had already been following Christ for several months. I had already been sober for 5 or 6 months or something. So I was already on the right path,
Right.
you know, and I was very much, even though I didn't want long-term treatment, I was afraid of long-term treatment because I was going out of my house, out of my comfort zone. I was also leaving my sister who depends on me.
Right.
And I didn't, you know, I was afraid of that. And I was going into unfamiliar territory, you know. I'd never tried to get sober in my life, ever. So for me to be going into long-term treatment, and I felt like I didn't need it because I'd already come to Christ and surrendered to him. I didn't need it, you know, but really I did. I needed that stability. I needed that structure. I needed the schedule. I needed the accountability. I needed the retraining, you know. I needed a place to just be able to learn all about the character of God. And that's what Lifeline gave me. They gave me relationships. They gave me accountability. They gave me structure. They gave me that time and that teaching.
Accountability.
Yeah. So, you know, and I got to go to the different churches, you know, and hear the different kinds of preaching. My husband got to come and visit me. He got to go to the churches with me, you know. I got rebaptized here. I got baptized because the first time I got baptized, I wasn't really saved. So I got baptized here by Pastor John.
Yeah.
And it was good, you know, but I was all in. Like I was the student I was the client that was taking all the notes, and I was getting everything from all the services, and I was getting, you know, I was taking it all in because I knew if I didn't, I was going to go back out and die. And that was just it. I was going to die. I was going to overdose, you know, or wind up screwing my life back up so bad that I probably would have ended it. And I don't.
Yeah, and during the time that she went to Lifeline, I was still completely on
He wasn't on the meth though.
I wasn't on the meth
No.
anymore, but I was still smoking weed, and I started drinking more than I'd been drinking in a long time, just because
We were apart.
we were apart, and I got a refrigerator out in my shop that I keep beer in. So when I'm out in my shop, doing something and I'm thirsty, I'm not walking all the way to the house. I'll just grab a beer. Well, I'd start drinking, not on purpose, but I'd start drinking at like 9 o'clock in the morning. And by 5 o'clock that afternoon, I'm hammered. And it became an everyday thing when I really didn't do that before. But I was also, it was like I was undecided where our marriage was going, because at the point where she went in, I mean, I'd agreed to stick with her and try to work this out, but I was very leery as to what the results
How
were going to be
serious I was
when she
about it.
came out, because I'm thinking, if she comes out of there and she still is off the wall as she was before, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't have a whole lot of hope in her recovery.
Yeah.
I just didn't, you know, I've heard people, oh, yeah, I've been to, you know, rehab 7 times or whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, and you're sitting here smoking one with me now. You know, so not like it's 100% success rate, you know, and I was thinking, you know, I knew how defiant she was when it come to try to get her to do anything. So I didn't have a whole lot of faith she was going to come out of there that much of a changed person. And that was why I think it hit me so hard that she did as good as she did.
Yeah, I think Lifeline is special. I've had Terry Peeler on, and Kimberly, she's gotten married again, so I don't know her last name off the top of my head. And
Bowers.
Pastor Garrett, our youth pastor here, he went through Lifeline. So I've had quite a few guests. Sorry if I've forgotten anybody. It is a special place, and the Lord working there does affect things, but it is all up to the person and their heart.
Yeah.
Like every rehab will have a failure rate because people won't have the right heart. And I'm sure there's been people who've even been through Lifeline more than once. And but when your heart is right and you let the Lord do his work in you, that's really where you'll see the transformation.
Yeah. And so I went in there in 2021 of April, and I graduated. What was it? December.
Sarah Dukes.
Nope, she was before me.
She was in there too, right?
Yes, she's one of my best friends.
She just popped up in my brain.
She's
I
so
want to have her come back
wonderful.
on the podcast too.
I love her so much.
But when we first did the podcast, she hadn't gotten married.
Yeah.
And so she got to share her testimony on
Yeah.
being attracted to women.
Yep.
And now she's married to.
She's completely
So
transformed.
it's just, those are the stories that really are I love getting to have people who.
I just saw her and her husband last night.
Okay.
I got
cool.
to hug their
Well,
necks.
she'll listen to this, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, when she got out of Lifeline, like I said, I was drinking pretty heavy at that point.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be a stumbling block for her, so I didn't quit drinking, but I quit bringing anything home. I've got a friend that works on towboats, so he's like my 6 months out of the year friend, and
Yeah.
he drinks quite frequently. So during the month that he'd be home, I would drink whenever I was around him, and then the month that he was gone, I was pretty much stone sober. But I still kept smoking pot. That was the one thing that's always worked for me. In my mind, it betters me. You know, it was like my anti-anxiety. It was my anti-depression. It's my motivation. It actually gives me energy instead of makes me go to sleep on the couch.
Yeah.
You know, and it helps me with my aches and pains, this and that. So I looked at it like a medication at that point, more so than a drug.
Right.
And I figured, you know, I'm going to keep smoking that, but I just won't do it around her because I didn't want to be a stumbling block. The problem was, every time I got around her, she's like, "Oh, you stink." You know, it's like,
Right.
She could smell it on me.
I'm like a hound dog now.
Yeah,
My
well-
nose picks up all the senses.
I've done that for
the
too long to
smells.
know that smell. Yeah.
So
He would come walking in the door, and I'm like, "You've been drinking." I mean, walking through the door, I'm like, "Whoo,
I mean, it could be nothing but just straight vodka.
Yeah.
She's like, "Man, you stink." And I'm like, "What? Really?"
hound dog now."
Bloodhound, yeah. But no, she's been sober now 5 years.
It was 5 years in February. Yeah,
Praise the
I've been
Lord.
And
so
I quit smoking weed and
over 2 years
over
ago.
2 years ago.
Wow.
quit smoking cigars. She quit
Yeah.
smoking cigarettes.
I actually quit smoking cigarettes. I've smoked for 40 plus years, you know,
Wow.
and I haven't smoked a cigarette in almost 3 years.
That's awesome.
God delivered me.
Praise the Lord.
You know, so I wanted to share something about, you know, our identity.
Mm.
So, you know, when I said that don't try to change who I am, you know, don't try to control who I am and what I do, you know, with the drugs. When I was in Lifeline, you know, when I got my 24-hour pass or my 12-hour pass or whatever, I would go home and I felt very sad, you know. And I want to share this because I know that there's somebody that will hear this and can relate. And so maybe it'll shed some light on something that they have gone through. So in Lifeline, one of the people that did the group therapy was sharing a story. The topic was grief. And it was me and my Faith sisters. And when we were discussing this and hearing this man told a story about marbles, playing marbles. And he had found this really large marble, and he would win all the games with this marble. And it became a part of him, you know, this little boy who had these, you know, and he loved to play marbles. And so he dropped this marble down a drainage thing and lost it. And he said he was so sad for the longest time without that marble. And so the moral of this was, you know, grief is not just about the loss of a loved one or, you know, the loss of a pet or, you know, grief is when you lose something that is a part of you, a part of what is your life, your normalcy, and it's gone forever. You know, that marble was gone. He couldn't get it back. And so it could be the loss of a job. It could be the loss of just anything that means something to you.
Losing your marbles.
Yeah. And so when I started going home for these passes, I couldn't understand why I was feeling this sadness. Like he would come to me and I would just be crying. And he's like, what can I do? And I'm like, I don't know. There's nothing you can do. He's like, what are you feeling? What are you sad about? I'm like, I don't know. You know, I was not jonesing for drugs. I wasn't wanting drugs. It wasn't like I was going through a withdrawal, but I was sad. And so when I went back to Lifeline, I talked to my Faith sisters. Like I just didn't hold it in. I told them what, and one of my Faith sisters says, Sheryl, do you remember talking in group when Mr. Rogers was talking about grief? And as soon as she said it, it made sense. So I was grieving the drugs.
Right.
I wasn't wanting it. I was grieving it because it was no longer who I was. It was a part of
grieving the old you.
I was grieving the old, what I knew.
It's like you gotta bury that person.
And I knew at that point, I have said goodbye to it because you don't grieve something you know you're going to have again, you know? So it was at that point when I thought, that's it. I've buried it. You know, it's over. That part of me is done. And so, that's because that's where I found my identity. Like you said.
I've said on here before that, you know, with me, I'm 2 years sober from alcohol.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's good.
I really appreciate it. I've said on here something to the effect of like, it's sad that I can't drink and just have a drink and be okay. Like it's sad that I won't ever get to experience that. That's me grieving it because it's not a big deal. Like I'm just one who will never do that again.
Yeah.
And I just need to bury it and be okay with it. So thank you for that. Cause that's fresh revelation for me that anytime I've said something to the line, something to the equivalence of that, it's just me grieving it.
Yeah, it is.
And that makes sense.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that you're desiring it. It's just, it was something that,
It's no different than thinking of a loved one that's passed. You know, it's a thought that kind of comes through your head. You get sad about it for a minute, and then you move on.
Yeah.
Well, see, at Lifeline, they have a thing where, you know, you get written up as your punishments. There's different punishments for what you get written up for. And one of the things was you dig a grave. And I know that might sound horrible, which I thought, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I'm not going to dig no grave, And it's not like a 6 foot by, it's a whole thing where, and it is really a good idea. You have to write a eulogy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so in that, you dig a small grave, certain size. Mm-hmm. And then everybody goes with you. You write a eulogy because you're burying the old person, the old behaviors, the old addictions. You're burying that. And so that is when I buried all that.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I am grieving the drugs, it was like I knew I truly buried it. I truly said goodbye to it and meant it.
Right.
It was a confirmation for me in the grieving to know that it was over. It was gone. Now, am I going to ever sit here and say I've got it all under control? Absolutely not, because that's whenever somebody needs to check me back in. Right. You know what I mean? But right now, for the most part, God has delivered me from all that. I don't miss it. I don't ever think, ooh, I wish I just don't. And
even as we sat down before we even hit record, you said that you felt that nervousness of going through, feeling those feelings again, reliving this trauma that you've been through. And after 2 hours of us talking, it's like now you've gotten to do it again and you've gotten to share your story with people. How do you feel right now?
I feel honored.
Yeah.
I feel completely blessed. My stomach is at ease, I'm thankful because, there's the thing with God is there's so many times I should have been dead. Literally, I should have been dead, whether it be from overdose, whether it be from someone killing me, whether it be from me drowning when I drove my car into the river, whether it be, one of the many situations I found myself in my life. And there was a time when I did come to Christ where I was asking, Lord, where were you in those moments? Mm-hmm. Even though I knew he loved me, where were you in those moments? And he was right there with me the whole time. When I was being raped, he was weeping, because God doesn't cause the bad things to happen in our lives, but he's there with us, a lot of people want to blame God for the things. And I was, in that, and I didn't even know God. And I was, where were you during all this? Why did you allow all this to happen to me? And there was a time that I had survivor's guilt too, Why did I survive all the times I should have overdosed? Why did I survive when I should have been killed on the streets and some of these other girls didn't survive? Yeah. It's not for me to know. It's not for me to know why. But it is for me to share my experience and my story with others so that they can have hope too.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything you said about, the Lord doesn't cause this stuff to happen, and I think just hearing your story has just really highlighted the spiritual warfare that we face.
Yes.
And I however much people want to allow it in their lives, I think it's basically a part of everything that's happening physically here on earth.
Yeah.
Is that we're fighting against not flesh and blood,
That's
but
right.
principalities and all, the powers of this age, all that stuff. And so that armor, that fighting this spiritual battle, it's more than just a physical
Absolutely
thing that we're facing. And knowing that there is this question of like, why did you allow this to happen? Mm-hmm. And there has to be a point, if we're going to make God our Lord and Savior, that we just submit it.
That's it.
And lay it down.
Yeah.
And know that he is good.
That's right.
And hold on to his promises. and know that he was with you through every
Yeah.
terrible moment.
Yeah.
And he had you in his hand, and he protected you to this point. Even though all that stuff happened, you've lived through it for a purpose.
Yeah.
And so it's not for us to decide why us instead of someone else. I've lost my best friend. I've lost another friend of mine whenever I was like 17, he was 18, he passed. So I've experienced death early in my life. I understand that feeling of why did they have to pass, and but I have a purpose to live for them, to live for Christ, to show an example, to tell their story, to keep them alive by telling their story, to live as a good example for my sons, so that they can grow into be young men. So there's a purpose here for me, and it's just kind of walking with God and finding out where he wants me to go. What is your will? What is your way? How do you want me to go about it? All of that stuff. But it takes full trust in him, and to trust him, you have to submit all the questions. I mean, yes, it's okay to ask them.
Right.
I think it was perfectly okay that you had that scream fit with God, especially because you didn't know, and God heard you, and he spoke to your heart.
That's it. Yeah. You know that song,
to your heart.
I Trust in God.
Yeah.
You know the part where it says, I sought the Lord and he heard and he answered. That was it. I was seeking in that moment without even knowing that I was truly seeking. I was having my fit, but he didn't leave me orphaned in that moment. He rescued me when I wanted to end it, when I was asking him to help me to just stop my heartbeat.
Yeah.
He reached down and rescued me, but it is a submission. It is a surrender, and I have found that the more I surrender and just truly surrender, an example is, I had surrendered the drugs and I had surrendered, the alcohol and all that. I was still smoking cigarettes, but I didn't want to smoke anymore. I really didn't want to smoke anymore, but I wasn't, that addiction still had me. And I remember, thinking, well, I'll just give it to God. He took the other, but there was still the times that I was grieving, feeling that sadness over the drugs. Okay. Every once in a while. But when I had a conversation with Holy Spirit, I was like, Holy Spirit, I don't want the cigarettes anymore, but I need you to take it. Like, I need you to make it to where it's repulsive to me, And so it got to where when I would see myself putting a cigarette right to Jesus's lips. That was the conviction that Holy Spirit gave me. And I saw that 2 or 3 times. That was it. I was done.
Wow.
Now, once I surrendered that grieving of the drugs, he took.
Wow.
It was like that total submission, that total surrender. He took all the other. He didn't just remove the addiction. He removed the grief of it too.
The baggage that was coming with
the
it.
baggage that was coming with it.
Praise
like
the
I am
Lord.
complete. I am in complete freedom.
What does it say? Humble yourself under the mighty
That's
hand
it.
of God.
Yep.
Cast all of your cares upon
And put
him.
your trust in him, because I knew I couldn't quit smoking cigarettes. It was the hardest thing I quit.
Yeah.
It really was.
Nicotine's tough.
It was really the hardest thing I quit.
Nicotine is tough, especially if you've just been addicted to so many other things. It's the easiest one to hold on to after addiction, it seems like.
Yeah.
And there's so many pathways of doing it. Cigarettes, vaping,
Yep.
dip.
Yeah, it's legal. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so easy to just do it.
That's
I
it.
mean, it's so easy. And as soon as you've done it once, you're hooked again for years. It is. You just see it in people. One of my best buddies, his mom hadn't smoked for 2 years. Whenever they moved in down the block, she got around some girls smoking, smoked a cigarette, and she smoked the rest of the time she lived in that home.
Yeah.
And so you see stuff like that. It's just like any other addiction. It's hard pressed to beat.
Yeah.
But I want to just say thank you both so much for being completely raw and vulnerable with your stories. I gotta say, I've never heard stories like them before, and I truly believe they're gonna bless somebody.
Well, and I want to say where we've been since we've surrendered our lives to Lord. So, once I graduated Lifeline, I started teaching a class there. You know, I go every Tuesday night and I volunteer and teach a class there.
Okay.
And I've been doing that since, you know, so I get to pour back into the women, you know, that come
I love that
through.
people do that.
Yeah. And I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. And it's a very biblical class that I get to teach. So I get to stay very much into the Bible, you know, and get to pour the love of Christ into these women. Now I go with FaithWorks and Anna and go into Ballard County Jail every Friday night.
Is that how you met Alexis through that?
Yes.
Yeah, big shout out to Alexis because she's the one who introduced us and really helped us set this up. So you
the
started
Merriman
serving
House and all
through the FaithWorks and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. What's it like going into that jail? And you know,
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
I mean, your story alone, I'm sure all the women in there who try to be hard or try to say like I have the great, like I'm sure you can go in there and say, let me tell you about a life real quick. You know what I mean?
That is one thing that I think is in God's plan. That, like me not being saved until I was 54.
Yeah.
He let me run wild for 54 years to give me the testimony I needed to reach certain people.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell them what you do now.
I'm a volunteer chaplain in Eddyville State Prison.
Awesome.
Saved outlaw.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And,
Well,
he goes into Marshall County Jail too every week.
You know, the first time I went into Eddyville, have you ever heard of Kairos?
Yes.
I went in there for a 4-day weekend with Kairos, and by the second day, one of the guys that was sitting at our table, he said, "You realize every guy in this prison is talking about you right now?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Those tattoos on your arms." He said, "We've never had anybody come in here, not necessarily preaching the word, but, you know, for the benefit of God, you know, trying to bring people
just showing the love of Christ.
Show them the love of Christ. You know, we've never had anybody come in here with tattoos like that. You know, and they're all wondering what you're about."
Wow.
So it's really opened a lot of doors. I've got people telling me things I don't even want to hear. I had a guy confess.
Now you know how your pastor felt at 4:30 in the morning, sitting there going, "Whoa!"
Kind of like the pastor. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah.
That's so cool, man.
We've been on 3 mission trips now.
Wow.
Yeah, the first one we went on was in Honduras, and then we went to Mexico, and then last year we went to Asheville, North Carolina, and did hurricane disaster relief.
Yeah.
And God has provided, you know, because
Big time.
we raised the money, you know, to be able to do that, and it's just amazing how God has provided for us to be able to do that, you know.
And
so,
some.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
And being on a fixed income, because I'm on disability too, I got pinched nerves in my back. Being on a fixed income, we really don't have this extra money to go on these trips, and it's like $6,000 for the two of us to go to Mexico or Honduras. And once you sign that paper and say we're going on
you're
this
committed,
trip,
you know.
I'm kind of committing that we're going to pay this money and go. So I'm just thinking, what have I signed up for? I don't have any job or means of way to make this extra money. And we start making these donation jugs and putting them at gas stations and going and giving
making things, you know,
going
to sell
different churches and telling our testimonies and just talking with people. And next thing you know, it's like they're having us come back and give, you know, they're like, you know, well, we want to hear about where you're going. And then when you get there, when you get back, we want you to come back and give us a report on it. And the church would write us a check for whatever amount. And next thing you know, we've got like $7,000 and we're still a couple months away from going.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm just thinking, I don't understand at all how that
It's
just
God.
happened.
It's all God.
Even when the numbers don't make sense, that's another thing of
it's
surrendering.
a faith builder. It's like, whoa, my goodness.
And then the following year, same thing. It's like you're going, okay, yeah, we did it last year, but was that just by luck?
Isn't
So you
it
sign
crazy
up,
how we'll doubt?
you
It's like,
sign up for it again,
Yes.
and wow, it's just like the money just,
He's just sitting up there shaking his head at us going, when are you going to trust? When are you going to trust, But that's...
the friend of mine I told you works on towboat. I think it was for going to Mexico. We were...
Oh, yeah.
The money was not coming in as fast
as it did
what
the last
what
year.
it did the year before. So we were getting kind of nervous. And she told me, she says, you think we ought to get with Scott and just see if he would loan us this
couple
much
thousand just in
needed?
case?
And I looked at her, I said, I don't believe that's putting trust in God.
I was like, that's a mic drop. That's like, wow. I said, you're absolutely right, So listen, I said, you are absolutely right. And so in that moment, we opened our hands, we were praying, we said, God, we do trust you, blah, blah, blah. The very next day, I got a phone call from somebody saying that they were writing us a check for $300 and the money just started coming in.
Wow.
It was like that.
And
that
was it just a day
trust.
or two later, I got a job doing something.
Yep.
I do a lot of side work, little things. But it's like I hadn't done side work in months. And it was like a day or two later, somebody called me like, hey, man, I got a bunch of whatever to do.
It was like he wanted to hear us speak it out.
Right.
Because that doubt was still, even though we weren't speaking it out, the doubt, he knows our thoughts.
Right.
And here I was freaking out and worrying and thinking, maybe we need to have a backup plan, But as soon as we surrendered it and we were like, okay, God, we know you've got it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like from that moment on, the money came in and we got it covered for the mission work. And we did 2 weeks in Asheville, North Carolina with 2 different mission groups.
Wow.
Yeah.
Immediately thought of Abraham and Sarah. They tried things their own way.
Yeah.
And didn't work out too great for them. So it's always, it's in every facet of our life. And I've said this on the podcast that people struggle with certain things more than others of giving it all to God.
Yep.
And finances is one of those big ones where when it logically doesn't make sense, people have a real hard time, especially when you're trusting God for ministry work. But God is a miraculous God. He wants us to be provided for, and if he wants you to go, he'll provide the means for you to go because you're supposed to be there to minister to somebody.
That's right.
And I love hearing stories like that because that's true ministry, going out to the nations. Yeah. It's a big part of this church, and I would love to see it go even into our own country. Yeah. I just see there's so much division and hatred in our own country that we need a lot of Jesus here too. So I'm believing that the Lord's going to, and I know he is, it's just you don't hear those stories as often. In the States, you don't hear those stories as often. I feel like I don't anyways. And so I'm believing that the Lord's not only going to send us out to the nations, but also bring us back with more fire for our own.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much in our own backyard,
Well, in Asheville last year, the people that got hit with this hurricane, one of the houses that we went to, I'm just going to only talk about this one because there's too many situations, but the one house that we went to, there were like 4 trees that had tipped over onto the house. Mm-hmm. So the roof was leaking, which now all this rain that came through the roof, into the house, down into the bottom story, wrecked both of the floors, wrecked a bunch of the walls, all kind of mold damage and everything else. Mm-hmm. So the insurance company paid to have the trees removed, and they fixed the roof, but they said you don't have flood damage. Or you don't have flood coverage. So nothing that was caused by the water coming in was fixed.
Wow.
So they had a contractor that had came, and he said he was going to do the work inside, but he needed half the money down. They just left with a check and never came back. So they've lost faith in the humanity part of it. It's like, we got taken by the storm, then we get taken by the insurance company for whatever, I forget what their situation was with the insurance company, but then this guy comes and he takes advantage of them and leaves with a sizable check. Well, now this mission group that we're with,
here we come.
they're like, hey, what do you need? We'll come and fix it. And they had no faith in us ever accomplishing that. And we came, not us, but this group came, and through the money that we bring in donations, that which is what cost us to get onto the mission, that buys materials, it buys supplies, it buys whatever's needed. We bring it to the house. We put the drywall up. We replace it. We put in new windows. We put in whatever. And we leave. We shake their hand and we get a chance to talk to them about God. You know, and it's just like they're just scratching their head going, really? Y'all just came in here and did that and walking out? You're not looking for no money or nothing.
Yeah.
It's all for the love of Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we saw, you know, people who surrendered their life to the Lord through that, you know, just the act of kindness, the just by showing up and being the hands and feet for Christ. And so our hearts are with missions. We love doing missions work, you know, but there's something I wanted to say about our marriage that I didn't say.
Yeah, please.
So we have been married now we've been together 20 years. Okay.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But we actually renewed our wedding vows last May.
Awesome.
And so for anybody that's listening who has gone through, you know, the marital difficulties and, you know, or who are struggling, you know, it's all, if you put if you put God in the center and you work around him in a marriage, you can make it, you know. And we have a better marriage now than we ever could have dreamed of, you know. It's like we've always loved each other, but with God in the middle, it's just a whole different kind of love, you know.
And I almost never want to shoot her.
I knew he was going to say that. It's not very often he wants to shoot me. Yeah. And I'm learning to communicate. Like we have learned to communicate. We've learned to argue, you know.
Yeah.
We've learned how to fight.
Right. Right.
When we do fight, we don't really fight anymore, but
Well, we don't cuss no more. I know that.
yeah. And when we do, it's like,
Well, everyone thinks they're great at communication with the person they love until they try to have one of those conversations that can end
Yeah.
up being prickly.
yeah.
And you still have to be able to voice what is true to you and like how you feel about
Yeah.
something. You guys being on the same page about something, even if you have minor disagreements about exactly specifics, as long as we're on the same page, we can figure it out.
Yeah.
The Lord's going to work it out. He'll make sure that, you know, we're covered in this. And that just builds trust with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then each time, then those arguments hardly ever happen.
Yeah.
And you're like, praise the Lord, we're good.
Yeah.
It's the little things that build up that if you don't catch quickly, those are the things that try to fester and spread, you know, angst and all that passive aggressiveness and all
Yeah.
that stuff. But if
All
you
that.
stay on top of it as a couple and you just, you know, something I had to learn from being an addict, I was selfish myself. And so I expected to get return on my investment sometimes, or like, hey, I've done this, and this, almost like building like a checklist, and
Yeah.
you haven't met your end of the bargain. But sometimes the lists don't even out. Sometimes she does more than me. Sometimes I do more for her. You do it because you love the person, not because you're trying to receive some kind of equality and, well, it's your turn to put the boys to bed, your turn to give the boys a bath, it's your turn to do.
Right.
No, that's not, you can't live a life like that. You just do it because you love them.
That's right.
And that helps tremendously with those little itty bitty bickerings, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Our pastor, he says it pretty good. He says, you know, that in a marriage, you need to wake up every day and say, I have to make this marriage work. I'm going to make this marriage work, you know, and I'm going to put in the work because it is work, you know, and I intentionally, you know, am going to, I forget exactly how he says it now. I just ruined it. Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
But it's good. You know, it's like I am intentionally focusing on being married today, you know, kind of.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going through struggles, you've got to put the work in.
You do. That's
know?
a good point.
But there is a really good video by Mike Gunger, who's a pastor,
Okay.
and it's a 4-hour video. You break it down however you want.
Wow.
But he's very good. It is so good. And it's called Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage.
Okay.
And it's about how the man's brain is wired and about how the woman's brain is wired. And it is very, very good. Anybody that has watched it that I've told them, they're thankful they watched it.
I think understanding communication styles helps tremendously.
It is very eye opening.
'Cause,
He's
like-
very funny. He's very down to earth because I mean he is a pastor, but he's very like morally sound, you know, and it's biblical. It's really, really a good watch.
Yeah, for me getting sober, I met with Pastor Jeff on staff here, and he helped me with like therapy and just kind of really more just like talking to him
Yeah.
about life. And one of the first things we did within that first year of me getting sober is Jody and I came in, and communication styles,
Yeah.
love language. What's your love language? Is it touch? Is it gifts? Is
Yep.
it words of affirmation? That those little kind of tips and tricks helped us
Yes.
tremendously with understanding like, what can I do to love you? What can
Yes.
I do to help take a burden? Because sometimes we think we are, and you're just not.
Right.
You're making more of a burden by trying to do something.
Yeah.
So learning little things like that, I mean, that, and then also just building trust, because I had burned so much of it because I was always trying to keep my drinking in the closet. And I
Yeah.
was terrible at lying.
Yeah.
But
It's
I
hard.
did it anyways.
Yeah.
And
That's
praise the Lord, he got me through that.
You know, for him and I, you know, I, as far as him and I, like with our sexual kind of relationship, here I was having to, you know, learn how to be intimate without drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing, you know. First of all, I had a hysterectomy back in 2010. So there's that, you know. And then there was all that the trauma that I was medicating all that time, you know. Well, you take the drugs and the alcohol away, you put the hysterectomy into effect, you know. And then the trauma without the drugs and alcohol with certain touches, it's a trigger, you know, it's been a really difficult thing for him and I, you know, that we're working on still.
Like
Right.
other activities too, like we have 4-wheelers and side by side, and we take off and we just road ride out in the country where we live at. And back when we were still drinking and partying, that was half of what we were doing, basically. You know, it's like we were going to kick a 6-pack or a 12-pack, whatever, and burn a couple bowls and just go cruise around and see deer. Well, now to just jump in with a bottle of water and cruise around and see deer, it's like, it seems like a whole different mission.
It's
You
a
know, it's
whole
like-
different,
So
yeah.
in a way, she's almost lost interest in doing it. I still like getting out and doing it because I'm an avid hunter and whatever, but it's like it's lost that appeal to her. She doesn't just say, hey, let's go ride around.
Yeah. You know, I totally understand. I might not have as much experience as y'all do with the drugs and alcohol, but I did have, like, as soon as I started smoking weed, I was like, I smoke as much weed as possible day in and day out. So eating, sex, all that stuff like you're talking about, it is different. And there's like this learning to enjoy stuff
Yep.
again. For me, it was going and doing things after without drinking. My first comedy show, my first
Football game.
my first everything.
Yeah.
And the alcohol being literally 360 all around you. But just like the Lord, just like the Holy Spirit took that feeling of needing a cigarette and putting something in your mind to make it just repulsive, he can reignite your flame and your desire and your love for his creation,
Yeah.
going and seeing it. So I just believe that if you pray into that, you'll receive that. That, you know, being blessed by the Lord, I truly believe the Lord wants us to be prosperous. He wants us to have more than enough. But it's more than that. It's things like this where, Lord, meet me where I'm at. Help me find enjoyment in
Yeah.
this thing again. Because it's a desire of your heart for her to love that stuff too. And that's just going to grow you guys even stronger. I mean, just even a few years, 5, 7, or I'm sorry if I don't know the exact number of years you guys have been sober from certain things, you still have so much runway for the
Yeah.
Lord to continue to work in your lives. And so just be ready for it,
Yeah.
because it's going to happen, and keep on speaking that. And I truly believe he'll be faithful.
Yes. Me too.
Sorry, I tried to wrap it up too early. I didn't even think about asking you guys about the ministry aspect of what you guys are doing.
Oh, I tend to sometimes forget
No,
when
it's
I'm giving
okay.
my
I
testimony,
thank you
and
for
it's like
stopping me.
as soon as it hits me, I'm like, let me throw that out there before I forget,
Yeah, for sure.
I can't believe we've been doing this for 2 hours.
because this
Told you.
because
I said in a text. I said 2 hours will go by like a blink of an eye.
what did I say? I'm like, we're
So
not in any
were you
rush.
expecting
So I told him pretty
Were
much
you
there's a
expecting
lot
it to
to
go this
unpack.
Honestly, I was 2 hours is pretty surprising to me. I've done 2 hours before, but whenever I came in here and sat down, I hadn't even seen y'all. I hadn't even met you guys face to face,
Right.
And so I truly am totally just blind to what the experience. And your first text was very powerful and very inspirational just on its own. Like, okay, they have a story. I know that.
I said we have a lot to unpack. So
But
if you're not in any
I
hurry,
did
we're
not
not.
realize what she meant by a lot to unpack, because this is a story like nothing I've ever heard before.
Well,
So
that's not bad. He knows absolutely everything about us in 2
In
hours.
2 hours.
And we know nothing about him.
I tried to
We
open
know
up a
he's
little
getting ready
bit.
to have a baby
I
soon.
tried to tell you guys a little bit
Yeah.
here and there. I grew up in church. I grew up in this church back whenever it was a metal cathedral. My mom and dad are elders here. My dad has been faithful to God my entire life. He drank a little bit, partied a little bit when he was young, but once he sobered up and found God, early 20s, I believe, that was a wrap. My mom had 2 boys, and then her husband left her. But she was always faithful, always believed in God. And so she met my dad. They had me, and I was kind of the finishing of that family for a season. Now my parents have adopted 3 girls.
Really?
They're fostering
Oh wow.
well over a decade ago, 15 years ago probably. Dad felt like the Lord put it on his heart to adopt a little girl. Little did Dad know that God multiplied that number.
wow.
And so I have 3 sisters now.
That's awesome.
But so I grew up with spirit-filled family, not just like just a religion, it was spirit-filled. My parents have spoken tongues since I can remember it coming through the floorboard growing up. So I had a fire as a young teenager, and I lost it, and started my brother. I don't want to blame my brother. He was smoking weed, so I thought it would be cool to do that, and also school influence and stuff. So I started going down the path of smoking weed. I still believed in God, but that was my identity.
So you are the perfect prodigal.
Yeah, I shouldn't have the
son.
testimony I have. I should have been able to keep the straight and narrow. But I failed at understanding my identity early on. And so that put a big, there was a boy that was alive whenever I was like 14, and he had a brain tumor on his brainstem, and it slowly killed him. So I was big into faith, miracles, and all that stuff. I really believed that the Lord was going to heal him. And this is also the time that the enemy has started to creep in with these like influences of marijuana.
Yeah.
And so he was in the back of my mind. Well, Macon was his name. He passed away. He was like 5 or 7. He was somewhere in that range. And I went to the ER and prayed over his corpse. And I can like still remember his mom screaming, like laying in the bed with him, just like screaming. And I didn't get like probably more than 7 times to meet this kid, but it was like impactful for me. Like every moment I was around this kid at that age, it was like influential. And so that put a big like a wrench in my gear, where I was like just having trouble processing what had just happened. Not understanding that he was ready to go home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And things like that. Not asking good questions of my mom and dad and internalizing this stuff, and kind of just putting what my dad said on the back burner rather than really taking it to heart. And then pothead was my identity. It's all I wanted to do. It led me into just basically living with my wife at the time. We weren't married. I had a few other relationships along the way in high school and all that stuff, but Jody and I moved in together. 1920, we were moved in together and smoking, and we thought we had it.
Yeah.
We thought we had the best life ever. A little apartment, a little dog. We were as happy as could be. And the drinking just once I got the misdemeanors, like I told you, that sent me down. I'd never been a drinker, didn't like it. I almost could puke at the taste of it. I hated it. But for 6 months, I built a tolerance. So got handles of Fireball, and I was just chugging it with my buddies like every night. And I built a serious addiction to it fast.
Yeah.
And so I was now smoking and drinking a little bit, all the way up until I had my sons, and I finally like had a revelation whenever we were having my son Caleb, like, we need to get back in church. Like, I grew up in this. I know this is where we need to be. I was still an alcoholic. I was still trying to figure it out. My best friend died, and there's like just so much I'm trying to figure out in life. And finally, I got sober for 8 months. I started doing the podcast really early into my sobriety. I was like 3 or 4 weeks into doing this. I finally got sober. So I had done a few podcasts while I was still struggling with alcohol. And then I got sober. I announced it to the podcast. Hey, this is my list of my yearly goals. I want to be sober. I've been struggling with alcohol. And 8 months. And then I relapsed for about 4. And so eventually I had to come back on here again and share my testimony a little bit with the audience. And I'll inform them that, like, hey, I relapsed. I'm a month sober now, and just basically build it back up from the ground, because I basically lost the whole audience, and I totally understand it. A lot of people supported me though and loved me through it, and now I have 2 years of sobriety after that relapse. So the Lord's been doing a lot in my life over the last 30 years.
That's awesome.
The world's got a powerful draw to it.
It does.
And we live in the world. It's pulling on us every place we look, everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to be with Christ, you've got to consciously place yourself there.
You're so
right.
right.
It's very easy to slip and fall.
Yes.
You know, so anybody that can't understand that, they're not looking at their own life very hard. You know, because every one of us slips and falls.
Mm-hmm.
We are all just one bad decision away, you know, from relapse, and that means relapse in many different ways, you know.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we talk about at Eddyville Prison. You know, it's a maximum security prison. Most guys there are doing 20 to life. Wow. And every one of us is just one bad decision away from being there. You know, you don't have to be a career criminal. You don't have
That's right.
You don't have to be a bad person.
Yeah.
It just takes one night of having too many to drink, and you got a DUI manslaughter, and you're going to prison. You know, and then you end up in there, say, like for 5 years for a DUI manslaughter, and during that 5 years, you're getting picked on by whoever and pulled this way and pulled that way. So you join one of the gangs. A month later, the gang that you're with comes up and says, "Here's a shank. You need to go stick this guy." And you're like, "I'm not going to do that." Well, hey, we've been watching your back for the last month. You owe us. If you don't do it, we're going to stick you.
Yeah.
So now you go and do something that's worse than what got you in there in the first place. And now you pick up another 20 years. So now you're in there for 25 years. You know, and it's just like some of these guys go in there for the stupidest things and never get out.
Yeah.
You know, and it's real easy to get wrapped into things of the world.
It is. It really is. I was talking to Pastor Garrett about that recently on here. Somewhere in Jeremiah, it says that the heart, and when he's talking about the heart, I believe he's talking about the human heart is desperately wicked. A lot of times as Christians, we say we hear something in our heart. And I really truly believe that we're just talking about our spirit man and the Holy Spirit kind of speaking to us. And we say our heart, but the human side of us, the human fleshly part of it, it's desiring to be wicked.
Evil.
And it is. And there are some people out there who seem to have a good part in them who never find Jesus. I don't know how they do it, but there's not very many of them. And at the end of the day, there's still wickedness there that is desperate to come out. And without Christ, Daniel in the flesh was going to be an alcoholic. He was going to ruin his marriage. He wasn't going to be in his kid's life. And he probably would have died doing that, living that way, drinking himself to death eventually.
But God.
But God.
But God.
But God. So
yes.
All glory is to Jesus.
Yes, all glory goes to him. That's why I wanted to make sure that I said what our focus is now, and what, the different missions that we are trying to be a part of and the ministries. It's all glory to him, because this girl was just a wretched girl, you know? And so,
Yeah, the beginning of everything that we talked about was, you know, just all the crazy things we did. And a lot of people think that we're trying to glorify the drugs or glorify the sex, whatever.
no way.
But it's just
Glorify him.
to show the depth of how lost we were and where he drug us up from.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had that feeling before, but with your stories, I truly do feel like we've highlighted what the Lord can bring you out of.
I mean, I've got over 40 years of drug addiction myself. When I hear people go, "Oh yeah, I was addicted to marijuana for 5 years," you were a beginner.
Yeah,
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
for sure.
I did it at work. I did it at home. I did it everywhere I was. If I was awake, I was high.
Yeah,
90% of the time, the job that I was working, I was buying it from my foreman. You know,
Yeah.
so I didn't even have to hide it there.
yeah. One of my best buddies in school was a dealer. If you're gonna be a true pilot, you got to make your best friend your drug dealer. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's
just how
like
that ends up working.
I have never been arrested one time in my life. Not, and I'm,
Only by the
haven't-
grace of
I
God.
didn't get arrested the night I got my misdemeanors. The cop let me go home.
Yeah.
He just pulled me over, and I had weed and paraphernalia. I revved my engine too loud, and he pulled me over. But yeah, I never got a DUI. Of all that time, once you start drinking heavily, you just start drinking and driving.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you justify some of the sickest things, like just driving. I mean, drunk with, anyways, you know,
Yeah.
people in the car and everything else, and yeah.
He, for him never being, you know, arrested, it's just crazy. It just goes to show you how God will give you, he puts his desires in your heart, his desires for Shawn to go into the prison, because he's never been to jail. He's never been arrested. So for him to go into the prison and to walk the tears and to go to death row and go to the hole, you know, that's God's passion. That's God's heart.
that was that
He
night
gave.
where I almost shot her that made me realize I should have been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by his grace, I'm not.
What a powerful moment. Just that voice, that still small voice coming in just in time.
Just in time. Yeah.
Man, it seems like the enemy really wanted to have y'all both, just every way he could possibly have you, but the Lord was faithful. And you know, I just love hearing stories like this, and it's so awesome to hear about y'all getting to pour back into the communities that need it. What is one more message, if you had anything else for the audience that you just feel like maybe isn't getting talked about, or just anything that the Lord's been putting on your heart lately that you would like to share with the audience?
So I think forgiveness needs to be mentioned.
It's huge.
You know, when I gave my life to Christ, you know, I had so much unforgiveness in my heart. And so here I was starting this relationship with Jesus. And when I was in Lifeline, it was like, I realized in Lifeline that I had so much unforgiveness in my heart that I needed to forgive. And I was taught by a spiritual mentor in there that my relationship was not going to go forward with Christ if I had unforgiveness in my heart. You know, it can't. If you have unforgiveness in your heart, it just, you can pray all you want. You can, you know.
And that's not just towards other people. It's forgiveness for
Oh, yeah,
yourself for things that you
forgiveness.
don't forgive yourself
Yeah.
for too.
Forgiveness is a huge, huge thing, and it is so freeing. So when I was in Lifeline, my brother, who was my abuser, he was homeless at the time for 10 years. You know, he had just lost his wife of 30 years. She left him, you know, all kinds of stuff. And he was a full-blown alcoholic, doing nothing for himself. For 10 years, he had been homeless.
I'm shocked that he got married for 30 years,
Yeah.
honestly, after
Yeah.
you Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah. And so, him and I had been going back and forth. You know, he wanted to move up here, and I was like, "No, you ain't moving here." And he's like, "Why not?" I said, "Because there's no room for you in Kentucky." You know, well, he didn't realize at that point that I remembered the abuse, and so he called me when I got home from work that day. I had him on speaker, and I held that secret until I was 37 years old. I hadn't told anybody about my brother until I was 37, and I told him, well, my brother wanted to know why I wouldn't help him out and bring him up here. And so that's where I got him to admit some of this stuff, and my husband heard it. But anyway, when I was in Lifeline, my brother and I were not speaking, and my mother had passed away, the stepfather had passed away. You know, I had verbally hadn't talked to my brother in a long time. Anyway, I had known that I needed to forgive these people, and those were just 3 people that I needed to forgive. You know, there's a whole lot that I needed to forgive, but I had so much bitterness in me. It was like a cancer just festering. And so I wrote a prayer. You know, I wrote to God and told him that I was forgiving, and I put their names out, and I put what for, you know, what they had caused the hurt in my life. And then I, you know, wrote in there, Lord, give me the confirmation that I need to know that I have truly forgiven. And so, and then I hung it on a cross. You know, there was a cross at Lifeline that we were able to hang these things on, these prayers. And so it was just maybe a week later, my brother was killed.
wow.
While I was in Lifeline. And so, but God gave me the confirmation that I needed to know that I had forgiven, that I had truly forgiven these 3 people who had started the damage in my life, you know? And I can't tell you how freeing it is to forgive someone or to forgive yourself. There was a lot I needed to forgive myself for, you know? Once we accept the fact that God has forgiven us, then we should be able to start to forgive ourselves and to forgive other people because of the grace he has shown us. But it's just something that I feel like I need to say to people, that you can't truly walk in freedom if you're holding on to unforgiveness. And you will never truly find happiness and joy until you forgive.
100%. I think we need fresh revelation of what Jesus went through on the cross
Yeah.
on a regular basis in our life for the rest of our life. That level of forgiveness, to be beaten, to be spit on, to be mocked,
To be rejected by his own creation.
I mean, just all of the humility that he brought to come to this earth as a man,
Yeah.
and to suffer the way he had to face temptation,
Yeah.
face to face, and to not let it in, to sweat to the point of dripping blood to avoid temptation. He did that because he loves us. And he forgave us. Even if people are going to hear this and not receive him, he still died for them.
Yes.
That's a crazy thing. That's a crazy thing to think. But if he can forgive us, we should be able to forgive others too. So I completely agree.
Yeah. And, you know, if you're in addiction, no matter what the addiction is, I mean, whether it's drugs, whether it's sex, whether it's work, whether what it's eating, you know, you are not going to find the fulfillment in any of those things. You are not going to fill that void, that emptiness, whatever it is, that desire. You're not going to fill it with anything but Jesus, because he is the only way. He is what sets us free. He is love. So if you're looking for love in men or people, you're not going to find it. You know, he is love. And I'm telling you, I mean, I danced with the devil all those years trying to find whatever it was that I needed. And I didn't find it in anything but Jesus. He was the only way. And it's so much better, you know?
Yeah.
We have a peace in our life now that's just unbelievable.
Yes.
it's like I can come home now and I know who she's going to be. You know, she's sane. I don't know any other better way to put it, but it's like
as it,
you know, it's like I come home and before it used to just be we were off the wall. You know, there was no telling what I was coming home to, and now it's like he has just totally restored her. You know, not saying I wasn't a mess too. I was definitely a mess too, but I think I was a little more stable than you were.
oh yeah, yeah.
But it's just, you know, to drive down the road and see a police officer. Yeah, I still got to pull my foot off the gas pedal because I realize I'm doing 10
But we're not going.
over.
Oh wait, what do we got on?
Yeah, I'm not looking to stash my weed, stash the pipe, stash the, you know, whatever. It's like I don't have none of that on me anymore. What's he gonna find? A Bible?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, go ahead, pull me over. It's gonna be a speeding ticket, and that's it.
Let me tell you about
You know,
Jesus.
there's just a whole piece to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
God is good. He's so good. He's
is.
just so good. I can't say it enough. He's
When
just
you
so
have a
good.
faithful wife, it's like you know, as the man, we try to be the head of the household. We try to be the provider. We try to be all these things. But when you find a faithful wife, it really is like your rock. You know, you get to come home to that rock, and that she'll always keep you steady, even if we feel like we're wavering. And you can't say how much of a blessing it is. There's no way to articulate it or put it in enough words what they mean to us, what they help us accomplish, being the men we need to be, you know, for them and stuff. That they help in all that. And yeah, can't say enough things. Y'all, it's been almost 3 hours.
Oh wow.
Y'all are awesome. We got to do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's truly been a blessing. I never even could have imagined what I was going to sit down and get to hear today. And y'all have a story that needs to be shared. So if you're listening, please share this one because this is a real deal testimony. Thank
Wow.
you. I'll talk to y'all next
honored.
time. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
We're
Please.
just honored. We're just
Yeah.
honored to be able to share the glory of God. That's all.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right.